Hello, hello, and welcome everybody to the latest edition of Mind the Shadows with Fleshy and Thorne, and we have a very special guest for you tonight, the magnificent, the very wise Dan Updike, who I had the awesome pleasure of doing an interview with him back when I first got started in whatever this community really is, and he was a gracious interviewer and host, and he is very, very knowledgeable, and the YouTube algorithms were very polite and reminded me of his channel and sent me one of his videos, and I watched it and I was like, wow, I got to get this guy back on. So everybody, please welcome on the lower right-hand side, Dan Updike, who is he's got a little bit of a storied career himself. So let's let him introduce himself. Hi, Dan. It's nice to have you on.
Well, thank you for having me. I don't have my regular computer set up here today, so I hope that things aren't lagging with the video, but it's great to be here. And I remember that interview, DH. That was a lot of fun, and I think that a lot of people really benefited from that. And I know that they benefit from what you're doing on your channel here, too. And I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, brother. So yeah, I'm still a chatterbox, but I think I'm a little bit better at it. I now know not to talk over people quite so bad. So hopefully you'll get some good stuff to say. And we don't really have a topic, at least I don't. Although there's plenty of stuff that we're going to probably talk about. And I do have to probably call it quits a little bit earlier than usual tonight. So we'll see how we go. Probably around 2 hours tonight instead of 3 or so. So we'll see what happens. But people are filtering in, so let's just have a little camaraderie while we're meeting up here. We got Sin, we got Astarte Astaroth, we got Jeffrey524, we've got Dwayne Oxner, I guess is the right way to say it, aka Morning Star. Who else, Yepson? Who else, Fleshy? Who else is here? Who are we missing?
Jeff524, you just said, aka, let me go up to participants bit. Eddie Romanov is here. Jack
that guy? Bell. Oh man, you know, he's a scab.
Ruby Corsi.
I went on strike. I went on strike on my class, and he's a scab. No, he said it. He called himself a scab. I'm just letting him use his own terms, man. I don't like to tell people what to call themselves.
Jack B. Scab then. Sin, Anthony Viv, Astarte Azaroth, Buddha Nature, CM Helnikainen, Winter Marie, Go. And you know, I wanted to congratulate you too. I know I already did it in the DMs, but you're too blasphemous for LINKTREE.
Right?
That should be a compliment.
I actually had to get, so I'm still waiting to hear back. So a really nice friend and fan of mine named Mark, he's been a contributor. He's done some things with me. He recently went through the Lilith path that I put in the vampire handbook and, you know, found it really helpful. So he messages me on my email and he says, you know, I was looking for, I wanted to use your Etsy store, and I clicked the LINKTREE link and it says that you've been banned. And I'm like, what? You know, I never heard anything. I would think that I'd be the first one to know that, not the last one. And of course I go look, and of course it's been shut down. And I emailed them and they said that they'll get back to me. So I don't know anything yet, but my wife was going through the TOS and said, what it looks like, maybe the most likely, I don't know if I missed something else, maybe it was something else I missed. Blasphemy is listed as a thing that they don't like on their terms of service. And I'm kind of finding that funny because I'm sure if we look, we could find some e-thought hoe dressed up, you know, like a nun with a hoopa joop in herself, you know, something gross like that. That's getting away with murder. And me, just maybe it's because of this. I don't know. What do you think, Dan? What do you think the issue is?
I think they're afraid of truth.
Oh, gee. And this is Etsy, is it? Or
no, Teespring. Not Teespring. Come on, brain. Okay. No, LINKTREE. Excuse me, LINKTREE.
LINKTREE. Okay. Yeah, I've never heard of that in any term of service before. I mean,
Yep. I find that interesting.
I think more places should have a anti-blasphemy thing, just because I would speed run how many places I could get kicked out of for blasphemous behavior.
I'm pretty sure. Fun. I'm pretty sure, since it's not coming from anyone, because Astarte Astaroth says, as determined by who, because that really matters, doesn't it? If you're talking to an Orthodox Christian, that's pretty much everybody else. Talking to a Jew, that's everybody else. Talking to a Muslim, that's everybody else. You're talking to me, that's potentially everybody else, although I'm not closed-minded like that. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting, little bit of a blanket way of just kicking people off you don't like, I think. So all I can think of is that some hater, and we all know who they probably are, went and cried to them, reported my thing, and that, I really don't see how anything I had on there was bad. So I don't know, maybe there's something I missed. Maybe I wasn't supposed to put an email link or something on there. Who the heck knows? But I'm sure I'll find out at some point, and then I'll have another reason to bitch and moan. So instead, all my links, I don't know if I edited them in the description of this or not. Let me, yeah, no, they're all wrong in there. Well, don't worry about it. The links are on my other videos. I'm not really, we're not selling anything today. So, you know who I am. Just Google me. I'm everywhere.
And thank you, Jay Sauber, for the super chat. Appreciate you, dude.
Yeah, thank you, man. So, I mean, not for nothing, not too long ago, a couple weeks, maybe a month, it kind of hit me that, being too focused on making a living out of this, it creeps up on you. You start off wanting to talk about deep spiritual matters and have fun. And of course I still do, that never stopped. But once I made it my primary source of income, well, it's all well and good when it's working out, but when it's not, you can start to find yourself being led by the balls of your wallet instead of your heart and your spirit. And you start doing the wrong things. And I don't think I did anything that anybody would notice, but me, like I felt wrong. And so in a way, it's kind of good to have those things happen from time to time. Like I've often said, and I'll say again, even if there was $0 in this at all whatsoever, I'd still be doing this, making videos, writing books, etc. So I think that's a better attitude than most. So, yeah.
Most definitely. Most definitely. And you can tell when you take a look on the internet as well, at any places where people are offering different things. The people that are focused on the money, because you can see some astronomical prices. Go sell your car to put a small down payment on this particular service that we're going to provide for you. Mm-hmm. But then that takes it away from the people that actually would need it. Mm-hmm. And so I know for myself, that's one of the things that I always kept other things going outside of this for making money. Simply because, it's so unpredictable. You never know. This is a real niche market in that sense of the word, too.
Yeah.
You're not going to have half the world's population looking at your channel. So you gotta do things to put food on the table, but not lose sight of the actual reasons that you're doing what you're doing here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because that's the point, I think.
I think that's a really good point. And I don't disparage anybody who profits from their spiritual work, providing they're sincere through the whole thing. Mm-hmm. I think that throughout history, the spiritual people in the tribe and the shaman, he would get free chickens for doing his work, and he still had to have his own little garden, of course, and his own little way of life, or her own way of life. So there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I was happy because I went back to my old day job part-time, and it was really good for me. It was like a really good thing to do. It was a really break from the monotony of being home trying to be creative all the time. I don't know. It sounds like heaven to just sit around and create all day, but you know what?
It's
like
heaven
doing this too much.
Yeah, it's heaven until you hit a little, stumbling block, and then it's just, oh boy, fucking drag yourself up. Yes. And it's like, you can only think of new things so often until it starts becoming repetitive. I mean, even in the vast world of, mysticism, magic, and all that stuff, unless you just don't care what you're looking at, like I'm not somebody who can just look at everything, right? I'm not going to do a video on Solomon one week and something else. I like what I like. And so at some point I'm going to exhaust my own interests and be like, well, what is there to talk about? Well, I could redo this video. And I don't feel like I'm ready to just like repeat myself. Although I do every single stream. You got to it before I did.
I knew it was coming. But yeah, so, anyway, but yeah, I think what you said before, Dan, about the pricing issue. I mean, I don't like to put a hard line on pricing in the sense that, where, oh, if someone charges this much, they're a fraud or something. I think supply and demand enters into it largely. And it's also a matter of how much you value your own energy and time. Now, me personally, I know it doesn't sound like I am, but I'm very introverted when it comes to, especially my time, you know. So I value my time very, very heavily, to the point where I don't like, you know, I read people. I read people. I know what they're thinking and feeling most of the time before they do. Not always, obviously. I'm not superhuman or anything, but I have a very good feeling on people, and I can sense when they don't need me to do something for them. They need me to tell them something. To, you know, I feel like I'm more of a sage, more of a guide than a doer. I don't feel like my role is to do the ritual for you, because I wouldn't do the ritual for myself half the time. You know, I feel like recognizing that the magic that we're doing, at least in my understanding, I'm not changing the world. I am aligning myself with my higher will when I do rituals. And that's hard to do for somebody else. That's not to say I can't. That's not to say spells don't have any influence, that they don't. It's just that, you know, I feel like when someone comes to me and they say, Thorne can help me, it's because they need me to tell them something. They need me to break something that they are holding on to. They have an attachment, or they have an issue that they're not working through. And, you know, ironically, it's often a very simple solution, you know, but because of attachments, we don't see it. You know, a person will come to you, oh, Thorne, I lost my girlfriend. Please help me get her back with this love ritual. I love those, because then I'm going to be a hard ass, like right away, be like, what are you doing? Why are you so attached to this person? That, like, they don't matter that much. They're out of your life for a reason. What are you doing? And I'd rather work that way than, okay, let's do the, you know, the spell with Beleth or something to bring them back. No. I feel like my job is, if you're spending especially as much as I charge for some of this, I actually want to help you. I don't want to just do a ritual to make you happy. I actually want to help you. So, but I have to be very stingy about my time, because I guess whatever psychological profile I have says that being around a lot of other people and, you know, being at the mercy of their money and their interests, I don't like it. You know, I like going to a public place and watching people and sitting in the sideline and having somebody come over and talk to me and have a little intimate conversation. But I don't like to stay in the spotlight. I'll get in the spotlight, but then I got to leave. I gotta go to the outside. So maybe that's just me.
Do you, touching off what you said with ritual services there, do you think most people, at least my impression has been that most people already have all the active ingredients, so to speak, to get what they desire? They just need a little bit of a catalyst, either from themselves or a little kick in the pants from somebody else to really get it going.
Generally, I'll let Dan answer, but I think so. I think that we're always faced with challenges that we have either the tools or the resources, meaning other people potentially, to learn and to grow through. I don't think that, you know, even defeat is a lesson, you know. So yeah, I'll let Dan touch that a little bit more. I sort of, Dan, what do you think?
Well, I think that people do have a tool set to deal with the issues that are in front of them. They may not be aware of what those tools are. And that comes a lot, I believe, from mental programming and what people have always been told that they are, what they've been told they can't do. And if they believe that, and of course, people growing up, of course, as children, are going to believe it. It puts walls up. And so education, I think, with the prerequisite that the person that you're talking to has an open mind. Because a lot of times the tools and the methods to get past the challenge are things that they are not necessarily going to like doing.
That's that's a big one.
You know, it's a little understatement of the year, but that's my take on it anyway. I found, you know, just as an example, we got asked to come in with some people that were dealing with a pretty miserable haunting poltergeist type situation. And This was one that was very legitimate. I saw the markings on stainless steel surfaces that looked like fingers had jammed into them. Okay. They had this on the side of their car. They had this on the stainless steel fridge and stove. They had objects moving in their house. Okay. And while we were there having a conversation with the lady of the house, she had pierced ears, and she had her earrings in there, of course, and an earring was taken out of her ear and flung across the room. And rather than sit there and, okay, now we've got to do an exorcism, we spent 6 hours educating these people into understanding first why they attracted this into their house. Secondly, what they were doing to feed it. And thirdly, what they needed to do to change their mindset so that they would stop doing the previous two things. After we were finished doing that, then we got rid of it. And then emails came in later, everything, basically saying that this was the most, they've been suffering this 10 years. All right. This is not something that's just a few days. This was something that their whole family was suffering with. And the reason they actually reached out to the individual that asked for us to come in was because their daughter was starting to have issues. After all this was done, we all got emails basically thanking us, and emails came on for months on end afterwards, about how everything was different in their house, how everything was different. They didn't have any of those experiences there anymore. But it would have been worthless for anything that we could have done if they sat there and kept on doing the things that kept attracting and feeding this stuff. Because, we could make it go away for a day, and then it would come back again because the dinner bell is still ringing.
Sure. I found that
mindset.
A part of it, a little bit like with possession. These things are. You're not a victim. That's number one. I don't believe in victims. I think there's victimizers. I don't think there's anything called a victim. I don't think victims exist. I think there's victimizers only. You victimize yourself. I don't think there's anything called a victim, especially spiritually speaking. So if there is a spirit, a dark spirit coming in, it's because people don't want to hear this. That goes with what you said before. People don't want to hear this, but we bring them into our own lives, and we don't like to do the work. I know for myself, the last year or so, because of everything going on and everything else, I have been like, what is wrong with me? I thought I was good at this and blah, 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 blah. And it's a big shadow that I'm integrating slowly. And it's a big hurdle. It's a big attachment that I'm dealing with, and it's getting better. It's always getting better. And I've had breakthroughs again recently. So I feel like, yes, good. But I did a lot of that to myself. I could look at the world and be like, oh, it's because this election happened. It's because of this COVID. It's because, no, it's really because of me. Really because of me. No matter what happens, even if I get shot dead tomorrow on the street, the suffering part, the part that makes me feel inferior, weak, incapable, attacked by monsters and demons. It's my doing ultimately, because obviously as a non-dualist, I think it is me doing it all in the ultimate sense. But the goal is not to be free of hardship. The goal is to experience everything to the fullest in the most blissful, divine way that you can. And even if you're being immolated alive, to understand that you are it. So, I think that when you have a poltergeist situation like that, I think it's all like when you have a possession, most of the time something's going on in the house. And poltergeists and shadows often go hand in hand, by the way. That you've got a lot of people feeding it on some level. It could be anything from there's abuse in the house and all that stuff, drugs, whatever, to just you're scared of it and you're treating it like a monster. And sometimes, at least my role, I don't like to do hard exorcisms. I prefer to do integrations and things like that. I prefer to say, well, what is this? Spooky's here, or whatever we'd call it. Let's light a candle for them. Let's do some. And we got a dog, and then it was like solved like overnight. So, I don't know if we got some stuttering, by the way, guys. I think there was
I
just a
believe
little
we
bit
did, yeah.
yeah, it looked like there was a little lag, so I apologize. The internet doesn't work anymore. Everything's falling apart, you know. Oh well. So yeah. So Dan, tell us a little bit about your history, your career, your practices, especially when I first heard of you. I don't know how old and dead this is in your life, but there was Northern Runes Radio and some other stuff. But you've been doing a lot of other stuff since then. So you know, what is your current, you know, project? What are you doing? How do you see yourself in your work right now?
Well, right now, I've been slowly bringing my focus more and more to the private community that I work with, getting things for them. And I still do public broadcasts and so forth. But my main project, if you want to call it that, is, of course, dealing with those that are first of all and foremost in the patron community that we have, and working with them, because, you know, there's not a lot of people there, but they are hardcore people when it comes to, you know, sticking with it and working through things. And so what I do in that is I deal with transcendent principles. So in other words, it doesn't matter whether a person is doing ceremonial style magic or whether they're doing Haitian voodoo, it doesn't matter. The system is not what I deal with, because systems are a dime a dozen. What I look at is the principle that is behind what is being done. And what is the same? Okay, the methods are different, but the actual principle and the state of consciousness that the people that invented that system were trying to achieve is not different. And so how do you take a look at these things from this holistic perspective and then show the way to be able to access the power that is being attempted to be integrated, for lack of a better description, that will benefit people regardless of the system or lack thereof that they happen to be working with. Because I think things are moving into a different phase in the evolution of consciousness right now. And if we try to hang on to just the shell of the systems that have existed over the last few hundred years especially, and try to just keep those in perpetuity, we miss out on what the evolving nature of consciousness is all about, because people are becoming more and more sensitive than what they used to be. Yes, there's a lot of stupidity that's going on out there. That is a given. But in the midst of all that, there are a greater and greater number of people that are starting to realize that, first of all, thoughts are things, that they can create or destroy based upon their focus, but they don't know what that means. They don't know how that works. Throw somebody into the deep end of, let's say, the Golden Dawn or the Ordo Templi Orientis or some other group there, where basically you are spending years and years just studying alphabets and theories. And they're just going to be overwhelmed and say, well, what's that got to do with anything? When you show the transcendent principle, then they can take a look at any system, even chaos magic, and they can work with it, and they have a quote-unquote why for what they're doing, and also a taste of success with it, which gives a great deal of motivation to carry through when you're in the periods of challenge. And I think that, you know, this is the approach that's going to actually be influencing people in the future more than what has ever been done in the past.
I couldn't agree more. I would say that anybody who watches my stuff or reads my stuff knows that that's where my compass is headed. My ship is sailing towards that exact idea, trying to understand the fundamental, which I don't think is hidden. I think it's been stuff that's, quite honestly, I think what happens is all of these different little systems and methodologies and all this other stuff. I mean, from Golden Dawn to voodoo or whatever you want to call it. These are all cultural metaphors for the same deeper universal truths. And as a non-dualist personally, and of course there's different versions of monism, and non-duality is just one. But we can all agree kind of on the one thing, and then all of the different extrapolations and iterations and implications vary from person to person. And the irony is, from that monist non-dual perspective, there's a lot of room for all of these ideas to coexist and kind of do what they do. And I think that we find, just like you said, if you look at evocation, for example, or invocation, or any spirit working, you know, there's different interpretations of what you're dealing with. And there may be different artistic representations of things. And I say that very, very intentionally when I say artistic representations, because I think magic is really an art form. I don't think it's a tool to get what you want. I think it's an art form that reveals. I think it reveals. I don't think it causes anything. So when you're working with spirits, for example, there is the view that they are superstitiously literally real, which ironically doesn't have, in the deep side of spirituality, doesn't actually have much, in my opinion, weight. It's the popular view that they are literal. It is the view of the priests that they are archetypal, that they are collective conscious, that they are something not literal, but they'll be ascribed literal features, because that keeps the masses in line. And all of that stuff. And that's not to say that there is nothing physical or tangible about them. A common misunderstanding, in my opinion, is that material reality is somehow inferior to idealistic reality, when they're both an illusion, really. The reality of reality is ineffable. It's unspeakable. It's an unspeakable cosmic horror in the Lovecraftian sense. It's literally something you can't describe, but you can know in a Gnostic sense. You can have awareness of it, just not in a linguistic mental way. And so when we're talking about a spirit like, say, Lucifer, which has no literal origin that we could find, it's literally an improper use of a word in Isaiah, and it's wrong. However, the archetype that it represents is found in every culture around the world, and it's not this evil monster per se, unless you're the Orthodox religion. Then it's a bad guy. But to the rebellious who know themselves to be divine, it is a liberator, which is that Gnostic understanding. So we find this everywhere. And that's one of those, as you were talking about, one of those, whatever, I forget what the word you use, but it's a fundamental principle that is universal. It's one of those things that goes all around the entire system. This is why a demonolator and a Jesus worshiper can basically emulate each other's practices and get results. And one prays and one does offerings, and someone like me just communes, and there's all these different ways. But what are we working with, really? You know, and the only people who really, I think, fail. I'm going to say fail. The only people who really fail, I think, are the ones who get superstitious about it, take it too literal, and they tend to risk going literally crazy. They start expecting things that aren't real. That's not to say that mysterious stuff doesn't happen. It obviously does. But people will think of it like Hollywood, and they get trapped. And I think what you were talking about with the stupid people in the world, it made me think of something, and I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. And that is, as the occulted truth, which is really not occulted, it's really in your face all the time. But as the occulted truth comes forward, we see that what was once myth and superstition becomes a commonplace thing. In other words, people are scared of magic, and so you have all of these traditions that hid the truth in symbolism. Well, now the symbolism, it's just like when they say in Zen, Zen is a finger pointing at the moon, but unfortunately too many people get hung up on the finger. People look at Wicca or any of these traditions, and they get hung up on the doobly-doos, the widgets. They get hung up on the letterings and the spells and the incantations and the jars. What a candle has to be made of beeswax. It can't be anything else. And all these little superstitious things, these little pieces that I think are blinds, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's an art form, though. So when people practice it that way and they do it long enough, someone who's really skilled knows, oh, I don't need any of that. I can literally just walk through the park and grab a stick off the ground and do a ritual right there. And then someone even more advanced just says, I don't even need to do that. I just have to, as you said, you know, everything's mental or whatever. So I can ideas are things. I can, if I ideate properly, really what it means, I don't think that your ideas are real. I think your ideas are your direction. If you ideate about something, you are selecting a timeline to view. I think that's more likely what's going on personally. But it still has the same influence as in our personal experience. I'm idealizing a thing and then it happens, or I ideate a thing with proper mindset and next thing I know it happens. So there's these fundamental things, and I think that as our world, you know, magic is on the rise. I've never seen in my life more people interested in the subject of whether it be theurgistic magic, like Golden Dawn focuses on, or thaumaturgical magic, you know, which miracle working, spells and jars and all this stuff. Never seen it before in all my life. I've never seen more people into it, more people accepting of it. And unfortunately, they're falling for the pop culture of it, not the deeper truth of it. And so luckily for us, people like us, that hunger leads to people to find us. The problem is you get, I don't like using the word fakes or frauds because it's thrown around too much, but you get fakes and frauds who don't know the deep truth, who will call people like us the fakes and the frauds because maybe we don't know their system, or maybe we have this opinion or whatever. And they have these thoughts that are just like, interesting that when someone probes behind the curtain and pulls the mask off of the monster, the demon, the god, and they see the true self behind it, they turn away and say, no, that can't be it. It's got to be Zeus is a real being on Mount Olympus. There's no other explanation for it. How dare you sacrilegiously say otherwise? Not realizing that the ancient Greeks didn't even really think that way. If you look,
we now know what happened and why you got banned off that site.
That's what
blasphemy,
it is.
Brother.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah. I think
I'm
right.
just kidding.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
I agree with you because, you know, we cannot sit here and think that we are the only sentient beings that exist in the universe. Yet people will assume that the gods or goddesses look like human beings, or that, you know, they were part of the human experience somehow or other. I think that some of the gods of the mythology actually were at one time people that got mythologized by
deified
generations because of what things they did. But people get hung up on whether, you know, Odin, for instance, was literal or not, or if Zeus was literal or not. When really I sit there and say, okay, since it is a fact actually proven by science that your brain does not tell the difference between what happens in a dream and what happens in your physical waking life. The same parts of your brain fire off. What's the difference? Why?
That goes back to the thing I've said. I don't want to cut you up too much, but I've said many times that are the spirits real or not? Yes and no. They're no more real than you and no less real than you. And you're not real either, by the way. You're an egregore as well. You're just an egregore that has been attached, shall we say, to this physicality by attachment, by egoistic attachment. You're a story that is just like this green lighter, which is famous on my channel because it's constantly showing up, has its own egregoric self. People go, oh, it's the green lighter, and they know that lighter. It's become a thing in the astral world because of that, so to speak. Now, we mythologize it. And we like you said, I liked what you said about how maybe these were once people. I think most of the time they were probably from a very ancient civilization, probably like a Proto-Indo-European or older culture, that they were chieftains and kings and queens or heroes and people who did things, and they were mythologized. They become deific. There is only one consciousness, but there are many masks for that consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And that consciousness forgets itself. That's part of the game, is ignorance. The word ignorance, avidya, is key to this understanding. You have to recognize that Ouroboros, the demiurge, is ignorance. That's what they are. That ignorance isn't evil or bad. It's literally part of the game. So we forget. Dan, you've forgotten you're me, and I've forgotten I'm you. We're the same consciousness, but we've forgotten that we're each other. But it might interest people to know that even the word person, if you look up the origin, literally means mask. Literally means mask. So when I say you're a nice person, I mean you're a nice mask. You don't exist at all outside. You're a collection of stories that you're associating. So what's Thor? What's Odin? What's all these beings? It's the same thing. It's a collection of stories. Consciousness wears those masks and interacts with us in both incarnate and discarnate ways. You can play with them in superstitious ways. You can talk to them at your altar and the candles will wiggle, and I have no doubt that they did. But the literal, I think, is an ego trap. I think it's a blind to think of them as literal beings. Not to say that they can't have physical representation. That's not what I'm saying. See, that's the problem. There's so much nuance, I guess. There's so many things that we have to say.
Yeah, but people often, it's an all or nothing type of mentality, and yet why can't it be both?
Mm-hmm.
I like
you're both, right?
But what, you can't walk and chew gum at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Why does it have to be all one or all the other? Why not all of everything?
Yeah.
And
I like that. It's kind of like the freckles on my arm. I could say, well, that's a different freckle from that, but it's all part of the same self. It's all part of the same body. And they're only different because my eyes pick up the wavelengths of light differently. And one's got more melanin than the other. And I go, they're different. But it's really the same self. It's really a collection of cells. It's really a fragment in my mind. It's really just a delineation that I've differentiated because they matter differently to me. But there's no difference fundamentally, right?
Mm.
So Fleshy's been trying to press the button for a while. Go, Fleshy.
Oh, yep, you called it.
Sorry about that.
No, it's been me. It's not you, Dan. You're good.
I could have jumped in at any time if I wanted to. So we actually got a few super chats while we were talking. I didn't want to cut off that convo, so I let it go. Behemoth X hit us with a 666 with an extra digit on the front. Thank you for that, brother. Jacob Dow,
one of the best channels. Thank you.
Oh, fuck yeah. Jacob Dow actually hit us with 2 super chats. First one said, just want to say hi. And then he got in with the question, says, what advice could you share regarding the building of a high proficiency in psychic vampirism outside of DH's book?
That means I'm going to have to go to Dan mostly for that one. But first I want to say, Jacob, thank you. You're a valued member of our community. I appreciate you, brother. And I hope your channel is doing well. I hope everything's going good for you. Smartest movie ever made was to leave some social media behind. I think we can all kind of agree on that one. If it wasn't for the fact that I have to keep this all going, I probably wouldn't touch any of it anymore. I would probably, you know what I wish? I wish we could go back to just going to the local New Age shop and putting our card in the window and doing it that way. But nope, now we got to use Facebook. Screw you all. So I'm going to actually let you answer that first, Dan, especially since I'm a chatterbox. And since I wrote a book on the subject, I'm probably just going to talk from the book's perspective. But I want you to go first. Don't worry about right or wrong. Just what's your opinion? If you need to have Fleshy read the question again. But,
yeah, if you could just read the question again quickly. Yeah, I just want to make sure that I got it right.
He was asking, what advice could you share regarding the building of a high proficiency in psychic vampirism?
Okay. All right. I know that DH is going to have some things from his book that he'll be able to share with you there. But one thing I want to mention first and foremost that a lot of people don't talk about, and that is when you are dealing with psychic vampirism, making sure that your mindset is set to one where you have your intent set in ironclad position to transmute any energy that you take into something that is compatible with you. Because if you are vampirizing energy off of someone who has, let's say, some real problems, you can end up taking some of them into yourself. But if you have that ironclad intent that you are transmuting any energy that you are taking to be at the same wavelength, for lack of a better word, as the energy that you would naturally be able to subsist on, okay, you're gonna alleviate an awful lot of issues. The other thing is to be very, very conscious of your own energetic vibration. Know what your own energy feels like, because how are you going to be able to tell what anybody else's energy feels like if you don't know how your energy feels? You need to have that and learn as well to control it, because you can change that frequency. This is very useful if you're dealing with somebody who has psychic shielding. Because if you know your own energetic frequency and you can tell somebody else's energetic frequency, you can match that frequency. And what happens when you have two frequencies that are compatible come together? Well, any type of shielding might as well never exist. Okay, but it all comes down to knowing yourself, and through that, being able to have the awareness of your target's energetic vibration. Okay, and then you can take action from there. But I would personally rather, if I was going to engage in that, take some energy from 100 people and have nobody notice that it was done, than to focus on one person and perhaps do far more than what you intended to do, because you can actually bring somebody right down into, well, the same gravitics as a death curse if you go too far with it. Now, if they're an enemy, well, hey, you do whatever you want to do. But when you're dealing with things from a perspective of just wanting to get good at doing this sort of thing, you want to make sure that you're unnoticed as much as possible, because then you get more experience. Then you get more practice, rather than all of a sudden getting involved in a conflicted situation when you didn't need to. Just my thoughts on it. I hope that's a help to you.
Sure. I think that's definitely one valid way to do it. For my own part, I didn't put that concept in my book so much, primarily because in my experience, you know, there are what would be unawakened or untrained or unaware, self-unaware vampires that don't know that that's what they are. This basically is the vast majority of vampires you're ever going to come across. They're people who literally don't know that this is what they are. And we have to remember that vampirism really isn't a condition. It's an activity that people participate in. I would even argue that vampirism is as natural as anything else. In fact, I think everyone's to a degree vampiric on some level. It really depends on how you define it. And I think the definition, of course, is pop culture, so we kind of have an issue here. But the broadest sense of understanding is there's people in the community right now that are part of the drama club, as I call it, that are attacking people like me, EA, other people. And I noticed EA's here. What's up, brother? Good to see you, man. Good to see you. That they stir the pot. They're broken. And they often will sort of manifest in the mundane sense as what we would call a narcissist, as something else. Not all, by the way, not all sociopaths and psychopaths are toxic vampiric people, by the way. That's actually not how that works. Narcissism, though, is generally a vampiric trait. Sometimes it can be, I know it sounds weird. You can have like positive narcissism where you're just really, confident and whatever. It's kind of benign. Yeah. I think I'm a little benignly narcissistic myself, but of course a real narcissist wouldn't think that. So I don't know, but, generally they will see themselves as victims of everything, and they will manipulate everybody into caring. And I notice the people around them, and I'm speaking to some people very specifically who may be watching, by the way, because I've said this to you. There's a vampire in your midst, and they're sucking you dry, and you're feeding them with your care and concern because they don't share that care and concern for you. They're sucking your energy right now. Your energy levels are lower and lower. I see you depressed. I see you unable. I see you ineffective. You feel like you have to go hermit mode. And that's often signs of vampirism, because what happens is your energy body, which is really a mental construct, solidifies, and part of the way that manifests is to often become very introverted or very defeated or whatever. You go into your cave, basically. And unfortunately, that doesn't usually help if the vampire's in the cave with you, if they're part of your cave's network. So, the inverse of that understanding would make you a more powerful vampire. If you understand what these bad incarnations are doing, you can use that to your advantage, cause drama for the person you're trying to vampirize, get them unhappy, get them upset, and feed off of that. Now, the evolved vampire, I've said this before and I'll say it 1,000 more times. I agree with whoever it was, I don't know who originally said it, that vampires eventually become, the awakened kind, become superior healers, because they can sort of like a maggot, we eat the dirty shit out of your flesh. We heal you by sucking that, because very often the source of our own vampirism is another vampire that either fed from us so much that we've got a permanent hole or semi-permanent. I don't think anybody's a permanent vampire, by the way, unless there's an entity that's draining you constantly. I think anybody can come and go as a vampire. I don't think vampirism is a trait. I think it's more like, if I'm vampirizing Dan all the time, well, he's going to consciously or unconsciously vampirize other people potentially to stave off that effect, or have to find some other way to deal with it. And vampirism is one of the easiest ones, believe it or not. And as he said, you can take up the negative energy and the good energy and blah, 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 blah. That really depends on so many different things. Now, me personally, I tend to target chakras. So, and a lot of times it's targeted based on what mine need. So if I feel like my chakras are not operating at 100% efficiency, maybe I'm feeling insecure. Maybe I'm feeling insecure financially or something. So I will find someone who is maybe doing really well financially, and I will try to absorb some of that. Or, ironically enough, I'll find someone else who's suffering from bad root chakra type stuff, and I'll target that because they're already weakened there. They're already vulnerable there. And there's a big hole, and I'll suck out of that. Now, Fleshy can tell you, and some other people can tell you, if I have a connection to you, if I sense that you're sad, it's not it is empathy. I do care. But if you're suffering, I'm saying, like, tell me all about it. What's wrong? What is it today? No, I want to hear the whole story. And in the act of helping you with your problem, trying to anyway, as your own mood and energy goes back up, I'm now taking off the top of that. I'm going, yes, now I feel good. I feel like I helped you. I'm boosting my own energy by boosting yours. So by doing a service for you, it's more of a symbiotic relationship rather than a parasitic one. So the awakened vampire is more of a symbiote. The unawakened is way more of a parasite. And in general, you will know a vampire by the people around them, what kind of a cult following they have, people who are afraid of them, people who feel like they have to help them. If you know somebody who's constantly in crisis, constantly in drama, constantly trying to destroy someone, that's a vampire, without any doubt. Yeah. So if you've got a friend like that, and they'll play the wise victim. They'll say, "Oh, I know I'm doing it to myself," or "I know it's my fault, but they have to die." They'll find ways. They'll find ways. They will always find ways. And it's very difficult for that person to ever come out of that because they're not equipped to. They found a way to satisfy their energetic, and you will never see them suffering the way you do from the same slings and arrows that would fell you. There's someone who, they're not here right now, but they got recently a hater on one of their videos. And I said, well, you know, why are you even responding? Just block them. You know that they're psychotic. They're just here to cause you problems. Why are you arguing with them? It doesn't look good. Even if you're right, it doesn't solve anything. They're not going to change. Your audience doesn't care. They don't care. They would rather see you block them and not deal with them. I'm telling you the truth. So why feed this troll, so to speak? And you have to realize a real vampiric being doesn't care what your answers are.
Don't try to talk sense into the leech hanging from your arm. Just rip it off and throw it away.
Yeah. I mean, this is why, you know, when you have a narcissist in your life, no contact is the answer. Like for unfortunately for most people, because very few people can withstand that vampiric effect. So what could make you better at it though? That's really look at what the toxic people do and find a way, unfortunately, maybe this isn't the most polite advice, but to emulate it. And if you don't want to be a bastard about it or an asshole about it, find a way to do it that's not destructive. You know, learn what's going on, how this psychologically works. You can play games with visualizing energy and blood streams and all this cool stuff, and that's important, yes. But that's a mask for the hidden truth that you can't see. We visualize, you know, fireballs and lightning bolts in rituals. Not because we're actually shooting lightning bolts and fireballs, it's because what we ideate, what we idealize, does have a reference in the absolute. There is something there that you're pinpointing when you do that. But it's not lightning, it's not fire, it's not blood streams, it's not that, it's not this, it's not that, it's none of that. But it is a pattern in the fractal that is relevant. And by charging that object, you're associating that object in your own psyche, your own soul, with that intention. You know, this is why I tell people all the time, if I charge a crystal, I don't believe I'm charging the crystal as an objective object. I'm charging the crystal in my own subjective psyche. If someone else picks it up and senses that, they're not sensing it in the rock, they're sensing it in me. They know that I've charged it because something about me is communicating that to them. But we're all the same them, right? So I guess it's an easy communication. But I don't think the rock picks up any energy. I think it's in you. When we call it psychic energy, we're talking about ourselves, ultimately. You could say it's the universal soul, that's fine. But that's just an interpretation of it. Same thing works with energy feeding and vampirism. I think that the idea that you're taking from someone, think of it like this. Think of a pool of water, a self-contained pool of water. If I siphon water, am I really taking water from anywhere? No, I'm just circulating it. I'm just moving it around. I'm not actually taking from anything. I don't think that I can drain someone and thus they die because they lack energy. If they die from it, if they suffer a death curse from it, if they suffer that, it has something more to do. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to come back to that. But I don't think that you're actually killing them. I think that what you're doing, you're going to where their destruction happens. You're going to that part of the multiverse where their destruction happens. And it feels like you killed them. But I think that they themselves probably won't notice the difference. That's just me, maybe. Maybe that's just me. I've had people believe that they've killed me, and I appear and I go, no, I'm fine.
Some people think they set your computer on fire.
Oh, that person,
Oh, no.
my goodness.
So, how do you feel about another question? I got a few lined up here.
Yes, make them all for Dan, so I shut up for a little bit. I want to take an easy night tonight. I want to collect all the super chats and just do a little talk. That's what I want. And Dan's got the best voice out of the whole group. I sound like a whiny asshole. He sounds like this beautiful radio. Like, I mean, you've got a great voice, but Dan, when he talks, it's just like, just do the inner world made of, you know.
Jeez.
You've got that awesome voice, man. I could hear you talk all day.
Well, you are in broadcast, so it's just fitting. You deserve to have the good voice. But so I've got a question here, and it is pretty open-ended. So Dan, if you want to take this one first, then feel free. From Wyatt Coverdale, assuming we cannot truly understand some things with words, why don't we just make up new words for it? It seems really simple.
Got a point.
Well, here's the thing. Whether we make new words or use old ones, words, especially when we're trying to explain something, are very much definitive. And the further you go into the planes, the further you go into magic, the more infinite you realize things are. Not that they're more infinite, but your awareness begins to realize that there's no end to it, that there's no way to define it. And so words fail because there's no way you can actually put the infinite in a box. It'll just tear that box into pieces. And it's not that the universe or the multiverse has anything against you. It's just it cannot be contained. It cannot be put into a box. Now, we do need to do what we can to try and use words to explain what we can. Otherwise, there's no inquiry. There's no further pursuit of knowledge. But we've got to realize that even if we were to gain all the knowledge possible to be gained in the human race next to the multiverse, it's nothing. Okay, I like the way one person put it. The bullshit that we tell ourselves when we really don't know what's going on is belief, isn't it? Mm-hmm. We like to have that comfort of believing that we stand on some sort of rock solid foundation, but really there are no such things. Not really. This is a path that is not one that gives you peace and comfort. It's one where...
And if it does, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. No, that's that's the thing about mysticism.
You got it, you realize that it was all wrong in the first place. And, you start all over again. And it's better to say those three words, I don't know, than to pretend like we do. Because when we realize that we don't know, it has all the potential of being anything. But the moment we put a definition on it, the moment we put it into a box, then it's that and only that. And that's why in basically Kabbalah 101, when they're talking about what they call the three veils of negative existence, the Ein Sof Hour, the Ein Sof, and the Ein, which basically Ein means nothing or no thing. It was forbidden to talk about it because there was no way that anything could be said that wasn't distorted to epic proportions. Because if you say the infinite is something, you have inferred immediately it is not something else.
I feel like I've said that a whole bunch, Fleshy. Has he been watching my show and ripping off my lines?
There's some
There's a reason I wear this tattoo, guys.
With both of your processes.
Yeah, that's why I love that. We do have some differences, but they're more potato than anything else. I would like to add, like, just as a joke, if you want new words for things that don't have words, just read Sanskrit, and there's a word for almost everything that you don't think there's a word for. That's why so much in mysticism is said in Sanskrit. Maya, Brahman, Atman, all these things they're beautiful words that say things that you could not say in English clearly enough. So that's one. It's probably the most spiritual language I know of, and I don't know Sanskrit for shit, but I know the Sanskrit words for things. So that's one. Even Aum, like it's not just a word. It is literally like the hum of the universe, the 432, whatever. It's all it's so much meaning in just that one little word. It's also all the vowels your throat makes. There's so much in there. It's like this stuff is too deep for its own damn good. It squeaks. That's how deep it is. But anyway, what Dan was saying was, you can't make a box that can contain itself. No model can model itself. No book can write itself. If I were to try to, let's say I were to try to write a sentence, any sentence, a simple sentence. This is a sentence. Well, now imagine that I've got to explain every word in that sentence. Now imagine I've got to explain every word that's explaining that word. And now you see the redundancy of the model. The model can't contain itself. It never can. You have to make assumptions. There has to be an intuitive understanding somewhere, which means that all of these words that we use to describe anything are fingers pointing, just like Zen would say. Zen is a finger pointing at the moon. Ignore the damn finger except to go where it's directing you to look. Then you'll see, and there's no words to describe the moon that does it justice. But The moment you think you can intellectually understand anything is the moment that you do not understand everything. The reason, the deeper meaning of the saying that I don't know is the highest form of knowledge is beyond just the humility. People focus on the humility side of that. They go, oh, that's just, look how humble I am because I know I don't know. And oh, look, that's how you know someone's wise, because they know they don't know. Okay, that's the you've opened the door and you're standing on the threshold of knowledge. That's that level of understanding. The next level of understanding is that which is known is the opposite of that which is, because what is known is an intellectual thought form. It is not the actual. The actual is ineffable. It cannot be conceptualized. In fact, the entire world that you experience is a result of that avidya, that ignorance of the true nature of what it is, which is ineffable, being projected in a dreamlike fashion to have symbolic representation, because somewhere along the way of your incarnation, that symbolism was important and necessary for you to have an embodied experience as a human being. You were born without these things. You didn't emerge into this world understanding what a green lighter was. This was a blob of color, if that, when you first saw it. You probably couldn't even really see it, except as just maybe just, you know, gradations of light, dark, and color, maybe. There was absolutely no conceptualization even of what the shape meant. It was a blob. It's really, I found one of the most eye-opening things I ever thought about was what it was like to be born and start to become conscious. What is it like, and how does it develop? Where does it start? What is the first things you notice? Well, first there'd be a binary. There'd be a up and down, left and right, light and dark, here and there, myself, before and after. These very fundamental noticings would be the first thing. The divisions, all right? All the things that just like a zipper going down in a big thing, just splitting everything apart. That's the first thing that happens. Then the next thing that happens is referential. You go, well, I know that the light is this and the dark is that. I know that that smell is mom and that smell. You don't even know what a mom is. You just know that smell means milk and that doesn't. And you make all these associations. As your brain builds this network of associations, meaning starts to become associated and all these little things, and you start to hallucinate more and more into what you see, to the point where you think that you see reality, but what you see is a model of reality that your brain is prepared for you to experience. Your consciousness is actually watching your brain. It's not watching the world. Consciousness is watching the processes of the brain, and the brain is like, here, look at this, look at this, look at this, and the mind focuses on those things because that's what it wants to focus on. Your consciousness is here, look at that. And so it does. It's like taking your hands and focusing them on just a small little section of infinite reality, and you're just looking at what the brain's doing. Now, all of these little things that you're experiencing, that is a model that your brain projects for you. They're not literal. And an easy example of this, and I don't want to ruin it for you if you haven't seen it, but look up, can you count how many times this basketball has been bounced, right? There's a video where if you look this up, and I don't want to give it away. I suggest you, maybe Fleshy can find it for me, but there's a very prominent video. You probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's everybody should watch that.
Everybody needs to watch that video because enough people will fall victim to it to notice something very important about how you experience reality. How a spirit could be here right now, how all of this could exist, and you see what you see and you don't see everything, or you do see this and you don't. So you have selective attention. And your consciousness literally misses out because none of the things that you see are literally real. We reify the whole world. And language is one of the ways that our minds does this. When you have someone who doesn't understand a concept, what do we have to do? We have to dance all around that concept with other words. So if you don't understand what avidya means, right? Well, the closest word in English is ignorance, but that's not quite right because it's actually something more cosmic than just stupid human who doesn't know. We think of it in a human term, but that avidya means something much bigger.
The video is in the chat, by the way, for anybody listening. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely watch that video at some point, either before or after you're done watching me. So you don't see, you miss so much. Another good example is when you're reading, you can like selectively remove like every other letter and still read the damn thing, or you can add letters that shouldn't be there and you still make sense of it. Your consciousness just is watching a model, a hallucinated model. And to think of it as real, even for a moment, is wrong. Now, this gets us into one area that people make a mistake on, because human beings like to do an all or nothing thing. I think you were saying that earlier, Dan, we like to do all or nothing. So when someone hears that, they go, so what you're saying, Thorne, is that you're not afraid of me putting a gun to your head and shooting you in the head because that's not real. Well, that's not true because it's obvious. Slow down. What I'm saying is the gun is not real, the bullet's not real, the death is not real, but I'll still experience all of that because I am attached to this perception of those things. There is no one here to shoot. There is no gun. There is no, but those things are projections of something that is. So there's no gun. What you see as a gun doesn't exist. You see a projection of the inspiration for a gun. The gun is a symbol for what the gun is. Just like the flame on the end of that candle doesn't exist. That's a symbol of what flame is. You don't actually ever see fire. You see what fire does. You see a secondary effect of fire, a tertiary effect of fire. You see what fire does to air. You don't hear a clap. You hear what claps do to air. You don't see light. You see what light does to your eyes. You see what I'm saying? You see something that is like feeling the universe through a pen 1,000 miles long, and that's your idea of reality. You think that you're feeling the hand, but you're really feeling the pen, is what I'm saying. Like if I do this, I'm not feeling my hand, I'm feeling the pen. Well, I'm not feeling the pen, I'm feeling my hand. I'm not feeling the hand, I'm feeling the arm. I'm not feeling the arm, I'm feeling the arms, I'm feeling the brain. I'm feeling the brain. I know that's going to go on the quotes, isn't it? I'm feeling the brain.
Just out of context, that entire bit.
That's a good one. Really... That's a good one. I'm feeling the brain. I'm not jerking off. I'm feeling the brain. So yeah, and this is why linguistics is both it's one of those human things. It's one of those powerful things that humans do. We do divide reality that way, but it's also our biggest weakness as an enlightened being. This is why all of the most significant Enlightenment ontologies have some form of silence as the key. Not that silence is reality, but you must shut up. You must shut up. So in Kabbalah, you have to not speak of it. In Zen, you have to be mindful and be silent. Then you can know it. That's the Gnostic knowing of it. I'm going to shut up. I'm rambling like an ass. I'm doing it again.
I mean, we're here for the rambles.
Yeah, but come on now. I'm losing my throat. It's not good for me. I get too worked up. I need to just smoke a whole bowl before we do this one day.
Oh, that's either going to be the best stream or the worst stream.
There'll be a lot of laughing and chips.
I'm more just imagining you just like this the whole time. Much.
I'll probably start singing or something down. So Dan, tell us a little bit. I mean, I want to go through more questions. I see a lot of chats going through, but so let's do this. Everybody ask questions of Dan, because Dan's actually got a lot of knowledge and math. So I loved your video on circles. And when I watched it, I go, yes, that is all like exactly what a lot of people need to hear. So what is your current, like, as you said before, you're interested in the fundamentals, like, as you were saying, the foundational truths that are behind all this. What system, though, has your heart right now? What methodologies has your heart? What do you like to use the most system-wise? Or what do you borrow from the most?
Well, I borrow from, and I like that word, actually. I borrow. I borrow from rune magic. And as well ceremonial. I've done that because with ceremonial magic, there's a lot of different emphases you can have that a lot of other systems don't. For instance, you can deal with Kabbalistic work or Qliphothic work, or you can deal with Enochian magic, or you can actually take any other type of magical practice you want to do, and you can ceremonialize it. I don't know. It's been a lot of years since I've ever dealt with a ritual that I didn't make myself. And that's something for people that are watching out there. The most effective rituals, I believe, that you'll ever do are the ones that you create yourself, the ones that you have allowed to outpour from your inner being. And that's going to be a lot more effective than something that you read and memorized from some other source, even if it was in an order context. A lot of the stuff that they would teach you in an order is not so that you just parrot everything that's put in front of you. It's so that you can actually start creating your own.
Correct. Right. It's like martial arts when you do a kata. You're not supposed to use the kata in a fight. You're supposed to take those pieces out and go, oh, well, if I punch like that, oh, if I lock the arm that way, it's kind of like that, I think, I guess would be one way of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I like, and in this aspect of things too, I divide my practice into physical practices and also practices that, well, I basically call it astral magic, although all magic, of course, is done on the astral plane. I'm talking about actual projection to a construct that I've created myself. Many people call that the astral temple, or they have various different names for it. Even when you're doing physical rituals, it's a good idea to have your astral temple in mind. But in the actual astral magic, to go and perform the rituals in the same way that I would physically, but in the astral temple, on the planes, or in a path working, or in other means, because I've been experimenting in communication with intelligences, not only with doing evocation and invocation, but also traveling to the realms where these spirits reside. And of course, realize in that I'm not talking about imagining a projection far away to the far-flung depths of the universe. Everything in every universe, in every time, in every timeline is right here. We often think, because of our experience in this day-to-day perception we call our lives, that there's distance, but there's not. It's just a change in frequency, and all these frequencies exist at the same place and at the same time. Think about it in terms of the radio, internet, wireless signals that are going through the air all the time right now, even as we're speaking here. Okay? How many channels are doing live streams on YouTube right now at this moment? Well, if they were all on the same frequency, none of us would be getting through anywhere. But they're all on a little bit of a different frequency. They're all on a little different channel. And the same with radio frequencies, the same with microwave frequencies, FM and AM frequencies, the whole 9 yards. It's all right here. And the same is true in terms of the universe, time, ancestral connections, your lifetimes. Everything is all simultaneous. We are just aware of what we're experiencing right now, because in the point of awareness that insert your name here happens to be, okay, that's what you're focused on right now.
Again, Fleshy, does it sound like he watches my show? Because I know he doesn't watch it that much. We definitely have some same views on that. Different ways of saying it, and maybe different depths of saying it, but I think that we see the same basic fundamental principle. The way I describe it is from the non-dualistic perspective of Brahman and Atman, where Atman can be of any size. That is to say, Atman is ultimately Brahman, but it can think itself small. It can think of itself as a tiny little nothing. And so this avatar of chaos, as I call it, is like the little aperture through which you see the infinite, and you focus upon only this, like you said, a frequency, although I don't like to use the word frequency. I think that materializes it too much. I think of it more like, I'll do it as I always do. Who knows what's going to happen? Here comes a book. I think of it like a great big book like this, and the entire story of all reality is in this book, and the eye scans the pages, but the pages don't move, the words don't move, nothing moves. The perception moves, the concentration of consciousness moves in the perspective sense. It doesn't actually, my consciousness doesn't go left or right, rather its focus of attention moves left and right. And in the hyperdimensional reality of the multiverse, in which there is time, space, and all of these things have multiplicative dimensional quality, like you said, I completely agree. It's all here and now. We think of it as there. In other words, if you are cosmic everything, you are the non-dual source, the monad, the one, the Brahman, Atman, whatever. If you're all of that at once, what does that look like? Well, it looks like nothing, because everything together at once cancels itself out and just becomes a great big wailing nothing. It's so loud, it's deafening. It's so bright, it's invisible. It's so much, it becomes nothing. So what consciousness does, omniscience looks like nothing. So to have the experience of something, omniscience has to simplify itself and divide and ignore some part of itself. Only then can it know time, space, identity, and all of those things, because as you said earlier, anything we say that is affirmative is really a denial of something else. So when I say I'm here, I'm denying that I'm everywhere. If I say that all time is here, all space is here, I'm denying that it's out there, and vice versa. It's all, this is why we say non-dual instead of one or two. We say, or zero, we say non-dual, because if we say one, that's an affirmative statement. If we say non-dual, we're saying it is one, but we don't want to say that because that negates the truth when we say it's one. Because if there's only one, then there has to be a two or a zero to make one make any sense. So this idea of magic, in principle, for example, builds upon the idea that to some degree, consciousness limits itself to its ideal, egoistic identity. And we are limited to what makes sense in that egoistic identity because we're attached to it. We think I am D.H. Thorne and only D.H. Thorne, and therefore whatever I see has to be within the realm of possibility of D.H. Thorne. That is why magic has a limitation in which it's got to make rational sense most of the time, with obvious exceptions, right? So next thing that has to happen is when you have this, we'll say, non-attachment to your egoistic story a little bit, when you stop saying I'm D.H. Thorne and only that, when you start identifying with the totality more, then your options broaden a little bit. The thing is, your ego can't move. You're just like Hamlet in the story can't change his story, but you as the reader can read a different story. You as the reader can write a different story, but Hamlet can't change the story. So D.H. Thorne can't change his stars. He can't change his story. So the more I identify as D.H. Thorne trying to change my life, the less it's going to work. So what does ritual do for us? Ritual is a way for the ego to take a back seat, for ego to shut up. And as you said, the most powerful rituals are not taken. They're not copied. They're not parroted. They're intuitive undertakings using a language of symbolism that generally takes us out of our own driver's seat. Now, that is to say, you're in the driver's seat, obviously, but the magic was done the moment you had the idea to do it. All of the other stuff is just a way for you to accept the possibility that the impossible is possible.
Yes. Yeah,
so you can do magic.
I agree with that.
So you can do magic by literally just cracking your knuckles, in theory. Be it astral, I always think magic is best done holistically. I believe that a physical, a mental, and a spiritual component should be involved. But that physical component could be I light incense while I meditate, and then I go off into La La Land into the astral temple. That's fine. I like to, when I'm really going at it, and I'm going to be, once my kid moves out, I'm going to take his room over and turn it into a new temple altar area. I'm going to set it up, and I'm going to envision and create an astral temple that will be like an overlay for that. So when I'm in that room, my altar may be a humble, not so humble, but humble little device that I've got. My candlestick might be something I got on Amazon, but in my astral temple, that little candlestick is a roaring torch or something. It will be something magnificent, but that's still represented here in this world. Now, that's important because in the multiverse, if it's fractal in nature, like I suspect, that means that there's probably very self-similar patterns throughout, and you can probably see it all. you can probably experience it that way, you know, just like we're echoes of each other, just a little different in a very big enough spectrum. Anyway, yeah. Oh, yeah. So apparently there's somebody who was being a jerk and they just got hit. I don't know how. If I've blocked them, how are they able to comment? I don't know, but whatever. Thank you, Camilla. Oh, Necronicky's here. What's up, Necronicky? What's up?
As Eddie said, the whole gang's here tonight.
The whole gang. The whole gang. Which the good guys and the bad guys? Mostly the good guys, though.
I mean, I don't... Does anybody here think any of us are the good guys? Maybe not bad guys, but I certainly wouldn't categorize us as that.
Good, bad. I'm the guy with the YouTube channel.
Oh, God. So we did have one question for you, Dan. This one is about the patch of hair on your chin. Says, do you think that makes you a more powerful magician?
Who asked that? Was it the person that Camilla hid? Oh, I hope not. No, that seems like a fair question. Okay.
It's something different. I used to grow a goatee and shave it off again, usually once a year. And then I've never grown one like this before. I grew one once that was like a straight line, straight down. But then that became difficult to keep straight because I shave with a straight blade razor. So if I make a wrong move, it's shaved off. And so, you know, I looked at it and okay, with this at least I can sort of make sure it's straight.
You know, I really tried to do the whole Alan Watts and other guy stuff where I wanted that nice like Fu Manchu thing going on with the long and I wanted all that stuff, but my hair's too curly, so it just ends up becoming like this big poofy thing that I don't like. And I don't know. I guess I'm just gonna have to settle on just chin strap and a little bit of a you know, mustache. I guess.
Get it chemically straightened.
I mean, I could get a lot of things chemically straightened, but I don't necessarily have to, baby. Oh, yeah. Hooked for her pleasure, baby. Yeah. I'm talking about my fingers, but anyway. So let's see. We're getting to that part of the stream, by the way, Dan. Be prepared. We get a little goofier.
Oh, absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So someone said Dan's a handsome man. That's Buddha by nature. Buddha nature. I think Buddha nature must be a fan of Dan. That's what Buddha nature is. Thank you, Buddha.
Oh,
Buddha nature.
You know what? Actually, Dan, earlier on, Asarte was asking what your Patreon was, so I could send her your way there. And is that hold on, let me pull it back up again. The TDP videocasts, is that where you would send people interested in your Patreon?
Yes. Basically, the handle on Patreon for that is of course www.patreon.com/TDP videocasts. And that should bring it up. And if for some reason or other it's not going to work that way, the best bet is to go to tdpvideocast.ca. And there you can find a link, because that's our main website. You can find a link to just about everything we do there, including Patreon.
And anybody listening after the fact, if you go to the top pinned comment under this video, you should find all the links to find Dan if you find him interesting there. And if you don't see it there, it means I'm bad at my job.
And again,
and you should shame me.
I want to say because Dan is a subtle person, right? I don't know if he's I don't know what his signs are, but I'm an Aries. I'm a loudmouth. I'm a braggart. I'm a big guy. So I've watched his stuff off and on since I got started, and there's a reason he's here, and he's very knowledgeable. And I've learned stuff from listening to him, you know, especially about specific stuff, you know, specifics of different traditions and different ideas that maybe I didn't think of. So while I consider myself like, you know, whatever level of attainment I'm at, you know, when it comes to understanding the mystical, there's so much I'm a babe in the woods about. And Dan knows a lot of stuff. He's probably forgotten more stuff than I know. So that's one of the reasons why I have him on. And, you know, check him out, check out his channel, give him some love, give him some support, and see what he's got. And if you listen to him, when he's there talking away, and it's like you're watching like a really just wholesomely nice sounding video with a lot of information. They're packed with good stuff. So I highly recommend you give them a shot. You did write a book once, didn't you, Dan? I forget. I think we talked about that once. Didn't you write a book? I think you sent me a copy of it, didn't you? Or did it ever do anything with that?
Well, actually, I've got both books out now because the one that when we were talking, Transcendent Keys to Power, that was the foundation for what finally I was able to get so that the font was a readable font, and that the graphics were okay, called The Spirits of the Outer Ring. What Transcendent Keys to Power is about transforming yourself, about releasing the things that hold you back, the self-created things that get in the way, whether it be things that came as a result of parents or teachers or other institutions, or, not a small aspect, having a religious upbringing, perhaps. Things that end up causing stumbling stones when you're trying to move ahead on the path of the occult. And at the end of that book, there were 5 spirits that were rather enigmatic, that I didn't really give a whole lot of information about, that were there, that are elucidated in the second part, which is called The Spirits of the Outer Ring, because those 5 spirits are actually what are used in the invocation of the spirits of the outer ring. And that it's a whole system of communication with intelligences that are basically beyond the norm. We'll just put it that way. That came as a result of my death experience in 2009. A lot of the things that happened that opened up in terms of being able to communicate with these spirits, and it's very different. I want to put this out here right at the outset. Let's say you're dealing with the Lesser Key of Solomon or the Lemegeton, and you're evoking spirits. The spirits of the outer ring are not like that. The spirits of the outer ring are a collective consciousness. So in other words, you call one of them, you've called them all. You are communicating with one like the face of a multifaceted diamond, but they're all there and they cannot be separated. And so without going through the things in Transcendent Keys to Power, the first part where you are purging yourself of certain aspects of a mindset that are very, very attached to thinking that who you have been told you are is who you really are. Okay. Having those types of attachments can be very dangerous for you in dealing with the spirits of the outer ring, because it can drive you insane.
Sounds like it's very related to shadow work, like from Shadow Namcon, but in a different way. It sounds like it's very similar. So that's interesting, especially with the attachments, like especially when you're talking about stuff that you've built up yourself or whatever, or acquired. Sounds a lot like shadow work. Yeah,
it is similar, but these beings, this being that is a multiplicity of beings, okay, is something that is not entirely in our system of what we think of as reality. They are equally present throughout the multiverse. And a lot of what these spirits can do, how they can work with a person, is basically unfettered by definitions, I guess, of what they can and cannot do. You find out by communicating with them what they can do. And do they communicate to the person who has contacted them successfully? Absolutely, they do. And sometimes in some very disconcerting ways. But the results that come forth are very, very tangible. including manifested results in practical magic in ways that I have not seen in working with any other types of entities in my life. So they just are what they are. And the books, actually, they could be in one volume, but they're in two because of the difference of the time of publication. But going through Transcendent Keys to Power leads one right into the Spirits of the Outer Ring. Transcendent Keys to Power is in color. I kept the Spirits of the Outer Ring in black and white to cut the costs down for people. Because it's amazing how much things cost when you start having them print color pages. I never realized it until I've done it. But
you just got to pass that on to your customer, though. You just raise the price, and it's
well, you know, the thing is, like the sales of Transcendent Keys has actually been quite good, and with the Spirits of the Outer Ring as well. But you know, it has to do with as well being able to make sure that people that would really benefit from this, because this is not something that I do to primarily make my money. I have other things that I do to sustain myself. But, you know, it would be a different story if that's what I was doing. If this, you know, working and writing and doing occult broadcasts was the sole source of my my personal income, it would be very different than what it is right now. But I try to keep things in such a way that the people that I think would benefit the most from it aren't, quote unquote, priced out of the market, because, you know, that would be nice. And I'm not saying I don't value my time. I know I do value my time as well. However, I have a different way of dealing with that. If somebody's wasting my time, I just don't deal with them.
I feel that, you know, I don't have the heart to cut it like that. I have a tendency where it's like, well, once you got my attention, I don't like being rude unless you really piss me off. But no, I feel you, dude. I think that's right. And you know, I mean, like my first book, Become the Maelstrom, I released it for 34 and change, you know, when a similar book by some people might be like 100 or 200, you know, a lot. And I'm like, well, you know, 34 at the time was just right for me, because I didn't expect to sell as many copies as I did. I expect to sell maybe, you know, 50, 100 copies. Next thing I know, I guess I'm up to over 1,000 overall since I released it now, probably awesome. Well over. I think over the 2+ years that a little over 2 years, I've totaled, I think my last estimate was around 35,000 altogether from all my books, which for a self-published guy is amazing. So I did make half a living off of that. That's not enough to live on when you split it up between 2 years, but I definitely, you know, improved. I definitely had a lot of success with a financial spell. We'll put it that way. Now, the problem though, is like you said, making a living on this in a niche market is like, people listen to this and like, you just do this for the money. I go, I'm still basically eating ramen, dude. Like it's not what you think. It never was. This is an act of love. If it wasn't, I wouldn't be doing it, because it's not worth it financially.
If you were doing this for the money, there would be a new Demon in Review video every week.
Yes, I would make one up. Like I'm dead serious. I'd make one up. And if I don't work with a spirit, or if I'm told not to tell anybody about the spirit, I just don't. You know, and also I got to save something for the books. But yeah, you know, so there's so much that people don't understand, because religion does ruin a lot of this. And there are charlatans out there that make stuff up, or they just do stuff for videos or whatever. So it's really difficult to know. And there's some people who it's a little bit of both. And I've often said that I don't actually have anything morally opposed to the charlatan that's sincere, that is copying from legitimate sources or whatever. To me, a charlatan, it's a weird thing, because just like an artist, like we'll say Lovecraft, could have no way of knowing what they were creating when they created it, but yet somehow turned into I'm not going to say it's value for everybody, but there's a niche of people who Lovecraft's mythos actually is a valid spiritual tool, and it works for them very powerfully. So who's to say there aren't people who are complete frauds that have the same influence? They don't know that they're channeling very useful information when they think they're just being, well, it sounds right to call it the black obelisk of doom. Well, hey, maybe that's going to work for somebody as a symbol on top of it. You know, just let it be. Just let it be, you know, and enjoy it. Like the movie Legend, you can use the movie Legend as a magical framework if you really wanted to. There's enough archetypes in there, you could do that. So, you know, there's so much that people, that's why I love what you said about finding the fun. I forget what the words were, the fundamental, I forget what you said. Finding those fundamental things that are true, regardless.
The transcendent principle.
That's what it was. Transcendent principles that are true in pretty much all these things that inform these things. Because if you understand those principles, you could make a bottle of Coke work as a magical device. I'm convinced of it.
No word of a lie, and I laughed my ass off when I read this. But there was a chaos magician. I can't remember their name. I'll remember it when we're off the air, probably. That used Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. I had one on my channel. He uses Superman.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Well, that's an archetype of Heracles, though.
James Tiberius Kirk.
Why not, though? Why not?
I mean, hey,
why not?
Sometimes you just got to evoke data to just pound through whatever calculations you got to do.
If you look, there isn't a single person alive today that wasn't alive before in the archetypal sense. That we've all been alive before in the archetypal sense. Kirk could be easily maybe like Jason the Argonaut, stuff like. There's so many characters from mythology that he could have been. Superman is Heracles in Gilgamesh. I mean, it's the same. The son of the gods, type character. It's everywhere. These archetypes. So of course, this is why I tell people, yes, Lucifer, for example, being one of the most obvious if you do your homework, has absolutely no historical foundation except for a mistake in wording and misunderstanding of what was meant by the word. Wasn't meant to be a name. It was a title for the king of Babylon at the time. And the king of Babylon at the time was important anyway. And people conflated it with Satan. And so Satan becomes Lucifer. But Lucifer has another meaning. Jesus is also a Lucifer. People don't realize that. And the archetype of Lucifer is absolutely found over and over and over. Enki, even Loki, even they're all Lucifer archetypes. And evil being no god is pure one or the other, but Lucifer is the Luciferian, or we'll say the Gnostic Luciferian perspective, is that this archetype, this character, appears in all these different mythologies, and it's always the one that questions and leads the heretical side to recognize their own divinity and to leave the other system behind. So this Lucifer character, there's nothing wrong with using the Paradise Lost Lucifer, which is literally basically the Superman equivalent, it's a made up story. You can use that like a Captain Kirk, like a Superman, like a Lovecraft character as your egregoric mask for the cosmic rebel liberator enlightenment force. It's the mask. It is the persona, which means mask, for that little facet of infinite consciousness. And
just remembering that it's the mask.
It's just a mask.
And I like, how you've said this a few times here, not literally, not to be taken literally. And because then that also frees things up, because, that allows consciousness itself to use that mask.
Yes.
And that just adds layers of power to what's going on.
Absolutely.
I'm going to jump in real quick. I want to let the conversation finish where it is, but just as a bookmark, I have a super chat that I do want to get to.
And I want to repeat what Eddie just said. Spock in front of me, Bones behind me, Scotty at my left hand, Kirk at my right. For about me blaze the deflector shields, and in the column shines the Class 12 warp core. I love that man. I fucking love that man right there. That's fucking incredible. He just comes up with that shit. Serial Crobot's here. By the way, for everybody who doesn't know, a Serial Crobot will be here next week. And I know we got EA Quetting super chat. I forgot. I think that's what Fleshy's getting at.
Yes.
That we got to get to. I saw that. I forgot. We got to make sure that comes up because he wants to know. So go ahead and drop that super chat question.
Okay. So yeah, from the great and powerful EA Coetting with the 666 says, Dan, I'm looking at your runic necromancy, and it looks like that could be a really cool combo. Anything you can tell us about it? I think because this was asked a little while ago, I think the combo he was referring to was between your two books.
Oh, okay. Yes. Well, runic necromancy would be on a totally different playing field than the Spirits of the Outer Ring. But one thing to understand with the runes and with runic necromancy in particular is that there are certain spell songs, and I'm sure you're aware of this, that talk about speaking with the dead. In fact, one of the spell songs of Odin was, when I see a corpse hanging in the tree, I draw certain runes upon it, and it walks with me and it talks with me. Now, what that's referring to, I believe, is a direct ability to access the intelligence and the information held by a deceased person. Now, we need to, again, keep away from literalness in this. You know,
like you can't find Aunt Sally's missing ring. Like you're not gonna be able to find Aunt Sally's missing ring with this, probably.
No,
right?
no.
Right.
What you would be able to do is find out what such and such a person knew about certain subjects, and I have no doubt that one of the uses of this would have been for strategy and war, because of course you've got to take a look at the context that this came from. You know, the runes were used by warrior tribes that were always at war for one reason or another, and they looked at magic as another weapon in the arsenal of war. And it didn't matter whether it was rune magic or scythe magic. That's just the way they looked at it, because it was about survival. But there are many other things that a person can gain information on as a result of that too, that would be more useful in our current cultural context. But not to think that, you know, all of a sudden you're going to create the zombie apocalypse by carving runes.
Right. You're not literally raising the dead, and like I said,
literal in that sense of the word.
Yeah, right.
You know, but it's a powerful thing. But one must also remember that the greatest illusion of all is the illusion of death. Because really, death is simply a transformation, and energy is neither created nor destroyed. So we're not looking at death in the modern world's idea of it being the cessation of all things. That's not what it is. It's just a change that such and such a point of consciousness has now shifted to a different focus. And that's really all it is.
I would even say that you die every moment, every day. You die every moment.
Yeah, look at that, though. Like they say, every 7 years or so, every cell in your body has been replaced. So you're not the same person even physically. Mm-hmm. You know,
not even from moment to moment. The blood's moving around, everything's shifted. Mm-hmm. You know, people, this is where you got to get your brain in order, especially for magic, because magic and spirituality, this is all so quintessential. It sounds pedantic because we're going over these little details, but the thing is, you base your own identity on what? You're born. Your parents start telling you your name, who you are, what sex you are, what country you're from, your religion, all this other crap. You accept all that. You integrate all that. You become those things. You reify that knowledge, and you apply it to this thing. Now, because you can't physically see the atoms swirling around your body doing what they do at ridiculous speeds and tempos you can't understand, and because you can't see the cells wiggling around and all the juices flowing around, you think of this as a rock that moves, a thing that's permanent and it grows slowly, and there's some slow changes. Your hair gets, you think of it not as what it really is. You're more like a wave going through an ocean. In fact, you're the whole ocean. And you're just an eye following a wave going, I'm that wave, that's what I am. But that wave at no point in its waveness is the same. It's made up of different things throughout the entire wave experience. Your body is part of the ocean. So the more you identify with this body, the more locked you are into one timeline of fate that is this body's identity. Now, death, all death is just, I use this analogy all the time. Dan, I don't know how good your memory is. Do you remember what you were doing at exactly this time yesterday? What your thought was at this exact moment?
I actually don't, because I was asleep.
Okay, fair. So most people don't know what they were thinking yesterday at exactly this time and blah, 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 blah. So were they dead? Are you dead now? Did that person die? No, you just forgot them. You've left them behind. Your consciousness has left behind that experience. So when the body is dead, it's no longer rejuvenating itself in a way that you're used to. Your consciousness can sit there and watch that corpse for a long time in a disembodied way. Maybe it floats out and goes, oh, fuck, I'm dead, and have that out-of-body experience. I don't know. I haven't done it yet. But you can have that I'm a ghost feeling for a while. But then after a while, the body disintegrates and you lose track of what you were, because this is for someone who doesn't know themselves, right? Someone who really identifies with their body and their story and who they think they are. When that person's body ceases to work and consciousness hasn't figured itself out yet, it'll sit there watching this body and watch it be whatever happens to it, and try to track it as long as possible. At some point, that body's gone and no longer watchable. It's split up all over the place. It's burnt up, whatever happens. Now all that's left is the people who remember it and still talk about it, the places they live. So consciousness will focus on those things and say, well, I'm still here kind of because those things are here. And after a while, that identity just like a wave crashing on the ocean, it just spreads out and goes away. Eventually that wave is gone. There is no identity left to be you. You now have to face facts. You never were that person. A person never existed the way you thought they did. They were just a pattern in the ocean. Once it's gone, you have to realize it was never there in the first place. You were never that. So when consciousness finally lets go of that, it can transcend, move on, be reborn, whatever. But while that attachment goes on, you don't. Now, what you're talking about, I think was really interesting. It opened a door for me a little bit in that I've often wondered, with my own channelings and things, of spirits and stuff. Specific knowledge is very hard to come by. If you ask a spirit, what's the winning lotto numbers? There's a whole bunch of different people who give you a bunch of reasons why you can't get it. One is a spirit will just refuse because that's unfair. Yeah, that's a likely story. Okay, fair enough. Maybe it's because it's always in flux and it's a random thing. And okay, that's a possibility. Maybe it's because that's not what they're there for, number one. Number two, it's always part of you. But I liked what you said, and that is taking me back to my point about you don't remember something from yesterday necessarily. Now for you were sleeping, but pick a time when you were awake. You don't have memory of every event from yesterday. You have highlights. You have a highlight reel at best. But you don't need even the highlight reel to take with you something of essence that teaches you for later. So I often use the analogy of when you were 5 years old, do you remember being taught the ABCs? Do you remember the first time you actually remembered it? Do you remember having it when it, so to speak, when it went in, right? Not just the first time you said it, when it actually clicked and do you remember? Most people would say no, yet they can recite the ABCs no problem. So we retain information in that long-term way without a reference point anymore. The reference point is gone. We lose that specific reference of identity. Do you remember the first time you heard your name? Nobody can answer that, I don't think, affirmatively. I think everybody would say, I have no idea the first time I remember hearing my name. But yet you know your name like you know nothing else. So even though you don't remember where it came from, even you don't remember the memory of it, the knowledge of it is still there. The essence of that knowledge is still there. So I think that when death occurs and consciousness moves on, it takes with it the essence of the knowledge, not the specificity of it. So like when you said, Odin, with the song, the rune song or whatever, and they would, try to learn the battle tactics or something. You don't like I said, you can't find your dead Aunt Sally's missing wedding ring, right? But the lessons of life that Aunt Sally learned, you can get. I do believe that is accessible. That's why you don't get the missing lotto numbers. That's why you don't get the specific information, but you might get the wisdom to find it, I think. I'm not saying flukes don't happen. I'm just saying aim for what's reasonable. Aim for the stuff that's attainable. And focus on that. And I think it'll work better. I don't know. What's your take on that, Dan? I don't know if you have a difference or an exacting whatever.
No, there's many different aspects of communicating with the dead. But what you're talking about there is in terms of what you would probably most successfully acquire in terms of knowledge is quite accurate. There are things that are more specific but are not necessarily communicating with the dead. They are, I believe, communicating more directly through symbolism of the dead with perhaps the collective consciousness of the world. And, at that point, too, there's a lot of things that a person would not necessarily be able to get information on. But that wouldn't be because it wasn't available, but because the person was not open to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because more times in my own experience, when I've asked for something really specific, what I have gotten in response is methods through which I can discover that information myself. And a lot
Absolutely
of times
right.
people want to have things just handed to them,
Absolutely
but they don't
right.
want to participate
in the doing.
in their own magic.
I
And I
feel
think
like
that's
that wraps
Fletcher.
around to what we were talking about very early on with ritual services.
Mhm.
It's not the doing so much as helping people to do it for themselves.
This is why, and people give me flack because you get a lot, especially chaos magicians, because they're very often wound up around magic as a vending machine, very often. Maybe not the super advanced ones, but a lot of people who are into it as a hobby. And I've had people come onto my channel and go, the only reason you don't like results-based magic is because you're not good at it. And it's like, I'll bet you $5 if I went and looked at their life, they're living in their mom's basement just being a little troll. Like, don't come telling me about results-based magic unless you're like Elon Musk or something, or whatever your idea of success is. You had better have the whole enchilada, or else don't talk to me about results-based magic, because I don't believe magic is there to give you those results. I think magic is there to validate your feeling of divinity. That's what I think it's there for. It is there to make possible synchronistic events, or I should say synchronistic awareness, because synchronicities happen all the time. We just don't notice them. We don't realize they're happening all the time. But magic creates that's why I call it an art form, because all art forms are there to evoke, to manifest, to bring your attention to a feeling, emotion, thought, or thing via a communicative process. So if I make a song that's sad, anybody who is remotely aware of music knows what a sad song sounds like, even if they've never been told, hey, that's a sad song. You can recognize that that's a sad song. If I draw a picture of a tree, if you've ever seen a tree before, you know it's a tree, even though it's not technically a tree, it's just some blobs on a paper. Magic in the same way encapsulates or creates a boundary around an event so that when it happens, when something like it, because magic is very often a little bit like horseshoes and hand grenades with surgical precision thrown in somehow at the same time. You're like, well, I'm going to do a prosperity ritual, but I'm not going to accept just finding $5 on the ground, even though that might count for some people. I'm only going to count if this other thing works. But if you're too specific, then it doesn't work either. So you're really setting up a synchronistic event to happen. And when it happens, you go, hey, that was magic. And the beginner will think I caused that. I think what's happening is you're aligning with what is already your divine will to happen. It's already going to happen. It's already in your timeline. It's already there. It's more an act of prescience than anything else. And your doing of the ritual just creates an encapsulation so that you have a moment of synchronicity. So you go, yeah, I guess I am the divine doing everything, aren't I? Because I must have known somehow that this was possible. Now, for those people who come to you with that mechanistic mentality that magic's going to do for me, they're 25,000 steps, like they're at the bottom of the mountain. They don't know that the top of the mountain looks completely different. They're looking up and going, I want to get there, but I don't want to walk that. And they want magic to just teleport them up there. They don't realize that magic is always, even the most miraculous manifestation that has the most inexplicable set of circumstances, you can argue there's a chaos effect going on somewhere where a butterfly beat its wings and gave you what you want at the end of a long rainbow of possibility. So this idea that you're causing things, this idea that magic is a machine that gives you things, you're not, instead of recognizing that you are the divine and everything is already in motion the way that you have said it, you want to change it as an ego. It's just another manifestation of ignorant desire of the ego. And nothing wrong with an ego. Ego is a beautiful thing, but it's got to be aligned with with the true self for it to be of any value. Otherwise, it's just a veil getting in the way that you just, trying to feel your way through the universe. So whenever I try to use magic I'll use the word selfish, but I don't mean selfish. In a selfish way, to get myself a goodie, to get an experience or money, or to make my life easier. I'm not saying it fails every time. I'm saying that that's the quickest way to fail. If I do magic, on the other hand, that is designed to help me learn something or grow, or like you said, the magic won't make me have the winning lotto numbers, but I can use the magic to help me prosper, or to find a way to cheat or something and get those winning lotto numbers, right? But it's not going to just give me the information. It's going to take me on a path of self-discovery to gain that skill. Now, I think that this might also be just a bias because of the Luciferian nature I have. Lucifer doesn't grant wishes. He challenges and teaches. Like, Lucifer doesn't give you, like, you don't go, Lucifer, give me $1 million, and $1 million arrives. Although I guess that's possible, but that $1 million is going to be a challenge to you more than it's going to be a gift. Lucifer is like Crom from the Conan universe. Doesn't answer prayers. Okay, it's not a prayer request line. Lucifer is an enlightenment, assistant. You're God, by the way. Did you know that? No? Okay, here's why. And if you don't want to hear it, then too bad. Then that light turns off and you got to go find it again. But it's also, in a way, the most powerful because of that. It's like the person who learns to be self-sufficient is more powerful than someone who learns to, be given everything. So I don't know.
Very
maybe I'm
true.
Just, yeah.
Very true. But be careful, the Hollywood crowd might not be happy with that.
I think it's blasphemy what I just said, right?
Yeah. No.
Somebody call LINKTREE.
Now the irony is, like, CM just said, I'm going to use results-oriented magic because my higher self wants to manifest a femboy for me to experience. Okay, joking aside, there is something to that, though. Your higher self wants you to connect with your weirdness in the WYRD sense. It wants you to connect with the strings of fate that you don't see. It wants you to see it wants you to feel a connection sometimes. And I think that's also why it does sometimes seem to work, because that's a learning experience too. If you don't have the whoa feeling that Neo in the Matrix gets once in a while, all of this just becomes some dumb fucking religion that you do for no reason, right? It's one of the reasons I refuse to do rituals for every little damn thing, is because I don't want to get to the point where I'm just doing rituals and, I want to have that whoa every time something happens. I want that. I want to recapture that whoa feeling as often as I can have it. Not to just give me crap. I don't want crap. I really don't. It's really not what it's about. And I'm reminded of that whenever I have these events where I go, man, I've been down on my luck lately, and I hear that little voice going, there's no victims, but there are victimizers, and I go, shit, there I go again. That's me. I'm looking for an excuse to nope. All right. Okay. And results-based magicians don't like that. They really don't like it. So let's see. Hunter Salazar is here. What's up, Hunter Salazar? So I guess we'll what do you guys think? Another half hour? Is that okay with you guys? Well, to wind down and maybe take a couple more questions from the audience.
Yeah, I've certainly got that in me. I'm definitely reaching that low energy state, as you could probably feel.
Yeah.
Hello, LINKTREE. I'd like to report one blasphemy.
That's probably what happened. Man, you know you've arrived when you get deplatformed for doing absolutely nothing wrong. That's when you know that you've actually arrived as a content creator.
Oh, hey, you know what? I was just consulting the list of questions. Oh, good, they are still in chat. So I don't know. This one might be a little heavy, but I thought this was an interesting question from Buddha Nature. For Dan and DH, how to get rid of a stalker? I already left all social media and am using anonymous social media, asking occult advice. Thank you.
And that was getting rid of what exactly?
Getting rid of a stalker.
Oh,
I think they mean a mundane stalker, not necessarily a ghost or a spooky thing, but a person
Yeah.
who's stalking them.
Buddha is still in chat, so maybe they could clarify. But I did read his material.
Okay, well, the answer to that could be very, very different depending on whether it's an actual stalker physically or more of a spiritual thing.
I think because they said they got off of social media or something, so I think it sounds like a real person.
Mm-hmm. Well, is it? Yeah, I guess
No.
The question would be is if it's a person that has access to where they actually are, or if it's somebody just online. Because if it's somebody that's just online, you can. I would never give such a person the satisfaction personally of going off of any social media platforms, even if I wanted to in the first place, because I would just simply block them. And if they were causing problems, just make sure that they felt. Well, I guess the only way I could say it is this way. A person that was a teacher of mine years ago said that I had a gift of making somebody feel like an ass for asking certain questions. To make them feel a bit like they were an ass for having even commented on any social media posts that were there. As eventually, and aside from that, just ignoring them completely, because eventually people like that, they either get really, really frustrated, have a blowout, and then disappear, or they just get bored. Now, if this person is somebody that has access to where you, talking to the person that asked the question, to where you actually are, then I would suggest very strongly being as proactive as possible to make sure that your home and your person are defendable. Mm-hmm. All right. That means,
and let some people know, like friends, family, authorities, if it's seriously something that is, and be in that position too, where you know how to defend yourself. And this, regardless of whether there was no stalker at all, I would recommend this for most people, is that, it's a good idea to have at least a basic knowledge of self-defense, because as unlikely as you'll ever need to use it, it's better to know how to do that and not need it than be in a position where you need it and you don't know how. Like somebody like DH and myself and you here as well, we're not small, little, wee, tiny people. Most people.
And I'm never more than a foot away from lots of stuff like this.
Oh, yeah. But, most people, if I'm in a bad mood and I'm walking down the street, they'll be on the other side of the street before I get near them, because I'm not a small fry either. But, there's a lot of people that aren't in that position. And people especially that have a very predatory attitude would feel that they can become a victimizer. I don't agree with, people being victims either, but yes, there are victimizers, people that want to be victimizers anyway. But, one idea is something called a cubiton. Now, I'm not recommending anybody get anything, but I'm just saying something for myself that I have that I've never, ever, ever, ever had to use. It's a keychain, but I don't know, just Google that. I'm not going to go into a big explanation on a YouTube channel as to what that is, but it's a simple little thing. But if you happen to tap somebody with that, they will hit the ground like a sack of flour. And if you're a really small person, friends that I had in the armed forces used to say that was the greatest thing to be able to encourage somebody to have.
So definitely that, but also think about a tactical whip, maybe.
Oh, where's
just
mine?
because that will put.
Yeah.
I've never
That
been
puts the
hit by
fear of
one of
God into
those,
God
but I
himself.
don't ever want to be.
That or one of my that or one of my Oni clubs. That would do a lot. No, this bad boy right here, it's got the Kubaton with the tactical whip on it. I mean, that's just no. You don't want that. You don't want that. Anyway, I mean, the self-defense angle is important, and it's one, especially as an American with my Second Amendment rights, I am all about. Within reason. You shouldn't be a nut about it, but within reason, I'm really into weapons and stuff. But that's actually.
We can see the banner behind you. We know.
Oh yeah. But besides that, which is honestly, from a tactical perspective, that means you failed to do the right thing already. When I used to be a bouncer, I used to have the mentality: if I've got to be violent, I failed. Doesn't mean that it's a lost cause. It just means I failed the most important part. If I have to use violence, not because I can't use violence, not because violence doesn't necessarily solve the problem. It's none of that moral shit. It's more of there's usually a way to diffuse, deflect, or otherwise stop a thing. I'm not saying it always happens like that, because some people say, oh, well, then you're saying that cops should never shoot people. No, what I'm saying is a lot has to go wrong before you have to resort to violence. In other words, if you're doing the right thing, the violence has to be forced on you most of the time for you.
Yes.
In
yes.
these cases.
And be thankful, because where I'm at, we do not have a Second Amendment.
Yeah. Don't let that go.
You got to be careful. And I sort of tiptoe around describing what certain things are, except for, Google what a Kubaton is, because you don't want to end up defending yourself with something that the government declares it to be illegal, because then they'll
upon where you live.
you. So, but, the self-defense thing is important, but also as well, have some self-confidence, have your own mental mindset on being not what's the word I'm looking for? Vulnerable. I guess that's a good way of explaining it. Because a lot of times people that have this type of stocky attitude are also counting on you being afraid of them.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, if you are more trouble than they are worth, they'll look for somebody who's not.
Now, but Buddha Nature is mentioning New York. I guess they're in New York with me. I don't know where you're at in New York. I'm on Long Island, so I don't know. Maybe if I ever do like some kind of left-hand meetup, it would be pretty cool. But anyway, I know your pain, because there's rifles I can't have in New York without going through hoops, and everything that fell off the boat they don't know about. But the point is, what I'm really getting at, though. So as a somewhat public person, right? I have 5,000 subs on YouTube. I've got, I don't know how many thousand on Facebook. A lot more people know about me than I'll ever know about them. And I'm sure I've got more people know about me than are on these things, because I have all these books sold. So a lot of people know about me. Now, if we assume that like some percentage of people are sociopaths, psychopaths, and some percentage of them will potentially act on it. There's already one person that got picked up for sending death threats to a bunch of people. They're actually in jail now, from what I understand. And I was one of those people that got the death threats. Now, I didn't do any snitching or anything, but I was one of those people. Now, I don't want to say 9, I don't want to give you a ratio, but my feeling is 9 times out of 10, 99 out of 100, 99,000 out of 100,000, nothing happens. Most of the time, they are just a weirdo that's stalking you. And if it's an online stalker in particular, it's really almost never of any consequence. I've got people who live to hate me. They will hate watch my videos. They'll downvote me. If they could find out my real name and information, they'd probably love to have it, but they'll never get it, because when I got into this, the first thing I did was say none of my real life information will ever be known. Right? The closest you'll get is a half-hour radius around where I live. If you can find me in a population like we've got here in that big a space, you deserve to get your shot. Right? That's how much effort you deserve to get a shot, because you went to all that trouble. I owe you at least, the opportunity to get shot basically by me. So the bottom line is,
That's the
Especially-
Long Island hospitality right there.
Yeah, that's right. Shoot, motherfucker. Anyway, the bottom line is, like what Dan's saying, you have to be a hard target. And by that, it means, look, I can be all macho about it and say, be a tough person. Yeah, that's true. But you can also just be, especially if it's online, just disappear from them. Block them every time that they appear, deprive them of air. Whenever they try to get your attention, just block. I've got one person that still will create new accounts every few weeks just to bother me with a post and just to poke fun at me and to say something. And they just make a new account. They're tireless. They're obsessed. Do I worry about it? No. Because I know also that if they ever showed up on my doorstep, the biggest problem I'd have would be dealing with the police afterwards. That's the biggest problem, not them. But that's me. That's probably not you. And I don't think that you should have to have that ability to feel safe. I don't think that's the answer. I don't think that's an answer that's fair for everybody. Not everybody is 6'1" with martial arts training and guns and 200 plus pounds that would not be easy. Okay. But I'll give you a secret that I learned when I was teaching martial arts and learning martial arts. The people who are most likely to attack you, they come in two flavors, okay? Really three, but there's two major flavors. Flavor one is the person who's attacking you based on ego. This is the person at a club, at a party, at a bar, who you've insulted them and they're in front of all of their friends and they've got a reason to prove themselves and so they attack you. The problem with that person, they actually fight the hardest out of the three. They're the one, I mean, I shouldn't say out of the three, but definitely out of the two major types. They fight the hardest because there's ego involved. You can break their arm and they might keep coming, okay? Because they're crazy in that moment. Their ego is taken over. The natural predator, on the other hand, is probably the easiest to scare away because they're not interested in defending an ego. They see you as food, as a target, as someone they want to hurt. But predators are instinctively scared of getting hurt back. It goes with the territory. A lion is just as scared of that gazelle, believe it or not, as the gazelle is of the lion, because if that gazelle kicks the lion just right, the lion could die from that injury. So predators don't like they don't like a fair fight. The last thing they want is a fair fight. So if you seem like you're going to put up a fight, most predators will, and I mean human predators, will turn away. This is why a lot of the time you can have a person defend themselves from, say, a mugger. I'm not saying you should do that because that's often a mistake, but usually it's just better to give it up. You know, what's worth more, your wallet or your life, right? But when people do have to defend themselves, a lot of times one or two good punches and the bad guys go running away because they don't want every moment that they're spending in your presence fighting you is a moment they could get arrested or beat up or killed or whatever, because they know you might be armed too. So most predatory people are cowards. Now, stalkers are a little weird. Okay, stalkers are kind of that third category, though. Stalkers aren't just predators, and they're not someone at a party who's egotistic. They might be a sociopath or a psychopath. They have a completely different wiring.
As a quick interjection, Buddha Nature clarified, it's more like the stalker that can't take rejection.
If you know who they are, then report them to the authorities. Bottom line.
Yeah.
If this is a person who has sent you their love and you don't want it and they're being spooky about it, most of the time the authorities will at most pay them a visit, but it's on record. If anything happens to you, the first place they're going to look is this lunatic. Now,
Yeah, that's very true.
Now let's talk about the magical side, because the physical side, there's so much that's obvious. Just tell your friends, tell your family, tell the police, secure your network, secure your information, and arm yourself somehow. Whatever that means to you. I don't want to tell you because like Dan was saying, state and local laws and all that shit.
Oh, real quick before I forget, we have a super chat from Mr. Patchwork. Says, "Hey brothers, been a hot minute.
We miss you, man.
So
Thank
glad
you.
to see
Thank you,
dude.
Patchy.
Thank
you. So the spiritual side, I don't think there's a wrong answer. Protection magic is the easiest to start with. It just is. Be clear in your intentions. Be current tense in your intentions. If you're doing sigils, don't be like, I will be safe. Be like, I am safe. I am secure, I am protected. Work with a spirit that is good for protection. Set up wards, set up sigils, set up mirrors around your home. You know, the Chinese use mirrors to ward off demons because they can't stand the reflection. Well, this is somewhat true with all negativity. Set up mirrors around your home, aiming outwards, aiming out the windows, things like that. Set them up so that any negative intentions get shot away. Set up psychic defenses, you know, for these things. You could do, one of the worst things you can do is try to destroy, I've found in my life, because someone who's a psychopath, something like that, they don't get destroyed the way other people do. It actually can make them worse. You know, I found that very often, like people, when they're having a drama queen problem, you know, when you have like the drama club coming along, I see this happen all the time in the community. Such and so said something about me, I'm going to death curse him, you know. This is one of those like attracts likes issues. I think in some cases people, you know, they respond with this negativity when really you just need to block, when really you just need to block out. You don't have, you know, when you kill, you know, when you destroy, it's not a moral issue. It's when there's a legitimate need to do so. You know, sending out destructive energies after a stalker might make them worse, might make them more crazy, because very rarely do those things land in a way that's like a, I'll put it another way. There's a reason I keep a gun by the bed and not a magic wand. Okay, because the gun's going to work. The magic wand will, maybe later they'll get a cancer or something stupid, right? It's not going to be the immediate solution that I want. I might inscribe my cartridges with, you know, magical symbols and, you know, whatever to make them more potent. Sure. But you see what I'm saying? I'm not relying on the magic to stop them or to destroy them. It's an enhancement. It's an accentuation. It's that stuff. So work through your shadow too. It sounds to me, if you've got a fear of a stalker, that's not a legitimate problem. It is, for sure. I'm not trying to minimize it. But your own fear of it, your own energy, you know, that goes into that concern makes it worse. I'm not saying to become oblivious to it, because that would be dumb. What I'm saying is like, don't let it have power over you. Like I said, I've got haters that if I fed them with my attention, I keep aware of them. I know they're there. I know that they exist. I notice the downvotes. I notice the weird emails. I notice all this stuff. But I don't let it make me worry. I know people that they've got big enough audiences where 2 or 3 haters shouldn't matter. Stalkers are like that. But when you just said right there, I do think I have to heal from old patterns. I think there's truth in what you say about like attracts like. So I think you should, I think what you're looking for is a sense of security. You need to find a way to feel secure. So talk to an authority figure, get that security from the mundane in place, then put your spiritual protections, and your protections should be built around healing and feeling secure, not about attacking them or destroying them. And I'm not doing that as a love and light answer. I'm talking, this is like Kung Fu, okay? This is like a Kung Fu or a Judo throw. You're not trying to destroy them with more negativity. You've got to transmute that negativity into something that doesn't hurt you and that helps you. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not saying go forgive them, anything like that. I'm saying, you know, so I've got, like, this is a sigil. I'll hold it up. What I'm going to do is I'll hold it up, and you can pause this later and just copy this sigil. Okay. Now I want you to understand what this sigil is. This little mark here is my personal sign. So let me, I got it backwards. There we go. So everything that's not covered with my finger is the sigil you want to use. Now you notice how that looks like a wall deflecting a whole bunch of stuff back out. You see how that's working? You can put it like this or whatever, like this. So imagine the force of the attack is coming this way. Notice how it's like rebounding off and it's scattering it into all these different directions. Okay. Now that's built on a word. So it is a sigil. It's a one-word sigil. One-word sigils are like runes. They're very powerful if you do them that way.
Most definitely.
So this is one word that essentially means protection. Now, so what I did was I put my sigil, my personal sigil, the public form of it, by the way, no one will know the private form. The public form of my sigil is under it. So you can see any attack coming in gets deflected out, and it doesn't do the damage that it could do. Now, you can use that one free of charge. It's yours to have. Okay. You could also do a one-word sigil. We'll say, what would be a good word? You could go with invisibility. You could go with, what's a word that would be similar to, let's do some synonyms for invisible.
Obfuscated.
Obfuscated, yes, obfuscation. That's a great word. I like that better because obfuscation, you're trying to obfuscate yourself from something specific, right? Occlusion is another good one. So I like obfuscation. It's a big word, so it's got that fancy magical feel, right? Invisibility is like, yeah, invisible. No, obfuscation. I ponder my orb of obfuscation today. Create a sigil with just the word obfuscation. Don't make a sentence. Don't do all that. Just make the word, okay? Make a sigil out of the consonants in that word. If you want to have some more fun with it, use what I call phonetic sigils, where each consonant, turn it into a phonetic thing. So for obfuscate, it would be like F, blah, blah. So F would be the first one. If you kept it in order, it would be like fa, right? I guess obfuse, so S would be next. So fasu, ka, give them the phonetic, sounding, and then jumble it all up and make that into a mantra that you say, right? And charge that sucker. So for protection, I don't remember the exact, I have it written down, but it would be like pa ra ba ba da ba da ba, and do it in that Buddhist mantra way that I like to use. It's you say it with the heartbeat would be one way you could do it. I am the source of blah blah blah, 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 and just charge it with that repetitive thing with the intention of just the word. Visualize yourself being obscured from this person. Really throw that intention in there. When you're done, the biggest secret to magic like this is you've got to then cut off all memory, knowledge, and intent. You have to cut that cord, let that intention ride through the universe. You can't sit there and worry about it ever again. If you do, you just set yourself back. You might have to reset it, you might have to redo it, or you just try to quickly let it go. The longer you worry about it, the longer you hold on to that concern, the more you ideate about it, the more you're holding on to all of that energy. You got to let go. So, yes,
if it's okay, I want to interject something in here.
Yes, please.
Just in line with what you're saying, because human nature being what it is, if you say I'm not going to think about something, mm-hmm. You do nothing but think about it mm-hmm. ever after. Okay, that's human nature, and when that sort of thing happens, please don't feel self-recrimination.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There is a way to turn that around, and it's very simple. Okay, you notice that you are thinking anxious thoughts about what you have just done in terms of magic. If you created this obfuscation sigil, okay, notice first of all, and then change by evoking the emotion of feeling gratitude for the success of the working. Don't belabor it. Don't hold that focus, but just use it as a counterbalance to the time where, I thought about it, right? And then rather than judging yourself and feeling like crap about yourself, and then you really are doing damage to your magic, okay? Rather than say, I thought about it. I am sure grateful that worked.
Show compassion, I think is what you're saying. You have to show compassion for yourself. Mm-hmm. Right? You can't accomplish anything. It doesn't mean you have to be too nice to yourself. Don't coddle yourself. But show compassion for yourself.
But don't be judging yourself in the sense that you're basically berating yourself for something that's a natural tendency. Because basically what happens when you do that is you're entering into internal conflict, mm-hmm. which is self-defeating. Mm-hmm. So,
and with the name Buddha Nature, I'm going to assume that you have at least a little, you got your big toe in the meditative pool, right? You say you use meditation and stuff. One of their comments, it says, I use meditation to change focus. when you have thoughts are not generated. You don't create thoughts. You don't generate them. You don't create them. You don't cause them. Thoughts are a focus. Thoughts exist like Jung said. Thoughts and ideas are like animals in a dark forest. You find them. You discover them. You encounter them. You don't create or cause them. You don't make the move. You don't cause any of them. The silence of the inner mind is not a silencing. It's a distraction away from the noise of the one mind focusing on the totality of omniscience. That's what that silence really is. If you want to know what that deep silence is in mindfulness meditation or in samadhi or any of those things, that silence that you discover isn't just silence. It's more like boop that fades away. You know, like if you hear one sound long enough, it becomes quiet. That's what it's kind of like. So when you're trying to silence this is related to what we're talking about, just, you know, when you're trying to silence a thought that's being a dick, you should focus on something else and then cut that out, like focus away from it. Think of the letter number 3, and then just stop. And for a brief moment, you'll have silence. Okay, well, just like that, you can do that until you pull away from the thing that's got you. Now, that's one way, but here's the other problem. Anxiety-based thinking, which is the monkey brain that Zen is often talking about, anxiety-based thinking is a much more difficult animal because it's rooted in a fear or a concern, a desire, a mortal, egoistic concern. I often say that I know when my attainment is poor, when I get a song stuck in my head. It means that I'm very embodied right now because I'm really listening to the blah blah blahs in my brain, and my brain is traumatized somehow, and it's focusing on something else, trying to get back to that silence. Because I'm usually in a very people who know me know that my brain is very silent. I know it doesn't sound like it because I talk like a motherfucker, but my inner world is very quiet. Now, if I've got like a song stuck in my head, that means there's an anxiety going on. So what do I have to do to cure that? Well, there's no easy answer. Sometimes that means I got to exercise. Sometimes that means I got to fight something. Sometimes I got to play a video game. Sometimes that means I've got to turn off the computer for a few days. Sometimes that means I've got to go fuck the shit out of somebody. Okay. I got to do something to get this pent up, whatever anxiety out, to transform it, to transcend it, to the alchemical, transmute it into something that serves rather than something that distracts. So you're dealing with something that's got you worried and scared. You think you're scared of the person. You're not scared of them. They don't scare you. They're the vehicle for the fear. The stalker isn't what you're scared of. The stalker doesn't fucking matter. What are you actually scared of that the stalker is representing for you? Deal with that, and the stalker won't have power over you. It's like when Alan Watts would tell a story about how when the Buddhist monks in Japan first got started, and they'd go to the daimyo, the military ruler of the local lord, the local lord, and they'd say, they would more or less inspire them. They would say, hey, if you became a Buddhist, we could teach you to be, fearless and undefeatable. And of course, the samurai would have, they might even be insulted by this. And a lot of the times they draw their sword and they'd swing it at their throat. And this was a test. If the monk flinched, the samurai knew that the monk was full of shit and probably kill him. And there would be no shame in that. He's full of shit. If the monk just held his ground, that's pretty impressive. So how did he do that? Well, the monk knew if he holds his ground, he can't be killed because then the samurai looks like a dick. He just murdered that guy. If that's what happens, right? So there's like this interesting game going on. So the monk transcends the fear by knowing that, well, there's that one bit of knowledge, yes, that's a little bit of a gimmick, right? But the other part of the knowledge is the person that's being killed is not the true self, so there's nothing to fear. Now that's easy to say. That's really easy to say. But until you've transcended the self, you can't be proven that way. What I'm getting at is that your stalker represents something that's egoistically terrifying. It may not be a fear of death. It may be just a fear of loss of control, or maybe you're angry that someone's not respecting your privacy. That's enough, especially if you're egoistically attached. That's enough. It would get me. I don't claim to be some enlightened master who has no ego. Of course not. I'm an embodied being. I have ego. There's no way around it. So there's things that will get to me just like that. So I think, you know, if you can find, I see you're working through it. I see you saying the stalker might resent that. I'm scared to love again. See, I'm peeling back the layers. See what I do to read? I'm peeling back the layers. We're finding what the root cause is. That's the magic. Don't worry about this. The spell is something to make you feel good, and it will help. I'm not saying it won't do anything, but that's what we're talking. This is what's going to solve it for you. Go talk to an authority. So do the holistic approach. You need the mundane. Talk to an authority figure. Got it. You need the mental. What is my egoistic problem? Got it. Spiritual. Do a sigil. Do the holistic game. I'm not saying that you won't suffer, though. That's the fucked up part. If your intention is to never suffer, oh boy, have you got a rude awakening.
No.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. it may be that your destiny is to have this person show up on your doorstep and scare the shit out of you. I don't know. Neither do you. No, don't be like that, because Buddha nature, if you're telling us what the truth is, unless you're making up stories, I don't mean that insultingly, by the way. You're saying, I'm so scared to love, and he is trying to show me love. Whoa, 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 whoa. Is he a stalker, or are you having Stockholm syndrome now? Like, let's not do a Stockholm thing. Don't turn this into, well, maybe I'm the problem. If they are a stalker, they don't love you. Okay? I'll go to my death saying that. If they're stalking you, they don't love you. If they love you, they'll respect your boundaries. Whether they think they're fair or not, they will respect your boundary. Period. You know, when you get to be a little bit of a stalker, I'm married to my wife for, I don't know, forever. We've been together for going on 19, 20 years. Been married for 13 or so. I got a little right to stalk her, because sometimes I know when she's telling me something that she really needs me to chase her for, okay? But if push came to shove and she's like, here's the divorce papers, I know that shit's over. As I don't have a right anymore. So if you've told this person, here's my boundary, and they don't respect it, they don't love you. Don't make that mistake.
They don't love you. They love themselves and are just completely focused on what they want.
Yeah. Yes.
You were just an object to be acquired. They don't care about your feelings, obviously, because they're not respecting your feelings right now.
Yes, I agree completely. So anyway, if you need more help, I'm sure Dan or I or anybody here could be willing to talk to you about it. But I think you've got, I don't know. I guess we planted the right seed, I guess.
Break their kneecaps, not legal advice.
Right. Not legal advice. Somebody get me my Oni club so you can see what you should probably use, because that will fuck a knee up. I'm not saying do it, by the way. I'm saying totally do it, but don't do it. Don't ever do it.
Susan. And it's a little late, so forgive me, Patchwork, but Patchwork hit us up with a second super chat, said, magic in itself creates opportunity. We still have to put in physical work for full manifestation.
Correct. Absolutely.
Correct.
Patchwork, that's dead on. That is dead on.
That's exactly the thing of, please, let me win the lottery. Let me win the lottery. Buy a fucking ticket then.
Mm-hmm. And Buddha nature, when you're getting self-defense stuff, avoid gimmicks. Pick something that has high percentage of success, that's easy to use. Okay. You know what's hard to beat? A hammer. Just telling you the truth. A baseball bat, tough to beat. If you're in your house, hammer. Hammer is devastatingly effective. I'm sorry, but it is.
Pocket sand.
Yeah, well, that takes a little finesse, but yeah, you don't have to get fancy. Okay. A good lock on your door. Don't give yourself, the word talisman comes to mind. A lot of people treat their self-defense tool as a protective fetish. Like it's a magic spell. Like just by having my gun, I'm safe. That's a good way to get killed. That's not how this works. In fact, some people, because they're armed, are more likely to go running into a problem instead of away from it. So it actually kind of has the opposite effect. Don't fetishize your defenses. I have a hobby that is kind of unhealthy with defensive tools, but I don't have for a moment this idea that because I have these things, I'm safe. That doesn't make me safe. You know, being able to use them is a little better, you know? So, all right, I think we're going to wrap up. I'm sensing the okay, we got it vibe.
Yeah, I think we're approaching the 3-hour mark too.
Yeah.
So I know you were wanting to.
I know. I'm not a man of my word. I'm really bad. I'm really naughty. I have no self-control.
But it's
there was good convo to be had.
Thanks, guys. All right, so let's do the wrap up. Let's do the buyer crap. Don't you? If I see those numbers go down during the buyer crap, that means you don't love us. You hate us. So stick around for 2 minutes and listen to the buyer crap segment. Dan, as the wonderful, gracious host, 2 questions. One, is there a video on your YouTube or something that really is like your crown jewel that you want people to see more than anything? Is there something you'd point to and say, hey, this represents me best? And 2, is Patreon the best thing to support you financially or to help you out? Or what would you like to put front and center? Those 2 things.
I guess on the channel that I've got currently right now on YouTube, there is a video in the broadcasts playlist called simply My Death Experience. That encapsulates the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. It also gives you an opportunity to get a little bit of a look into what my life was like and what inspired me to move forward with occultism, of all things, and how that experience in 2009 really revolutionized the way I decided to approach things from then on in explaining things to other people. Because really, if that experience had never happened to me, I would never have done any of this. Not with Northern Ruins Radio, not with TDP Videocast or anything else. I would have just continued on the way I always had been, keeping things to myself for the most part. But, you know, I came, and I know many other people as well, incarnated into this world at this particular juncture for a reason. And that experience I had in 2009, where my heart basically almost blew up while I was at work, almost 300 miles away from home, really was the literal wake-up call for me to actually allow myself to open up and not be so secretive about things. And of course, if you know anything about my upbringing, you'd know why I was secretive about things, because of course I grew up in the home of a Pentecostal preacher, brother. And of course, my older brother was a preacher, and you know, my uncle was a preacher. And so all these different people were around.
I think I know how that feels. My uncle, I remember I told him I was getting into Zen meditation, and he, like, as a Christian, the closest thing to a curse out you can do. He's like, how dare you do that? Because don't you realize by emptying your mind, you're leaving space for the demons to fill it? And I'm like, are you really that demented that that's what you think? That by emptying your mind, evil enters into it unless you fill it with the word of God? Holy shit.
By that logic, you should never shit. Absolutely, because you're leaving room for the devil's dick.
Nice, Fleshy. Yeah. Yeah. Not wrong.
And for the anybody who's interested, write in chat, and it will be in the comment under the video as a link to Dan's My Death Experience video on TDP Videocasts.
Excellent. Good job, Fleshy. You've earned your 55 cents for the week.
Yes, my lord.
For those that would want to do anything to support what it is that I'm doing, there's two ways they can do that. One, they can go and if they want to actually learn the transcendent principles that I'm talking about, and it goes through so many different things. I got told by one of our patrons that I have a bigger archive of things than they've ever seen anywhere, even on the Patreon platform. So there's a lot of stuff there that can be useful, as well as live interaction with myself, and preferential treatment when it comes to questions and so forth as well. But if that's not what you want to do, you can go to the website I mentioned before, and on the downloads tab, you can go there and you can see different things that I have created that are for the purpose of helping people like yourself get past different obstacles that may be in the way, to accentuate different talents and abilities that you may be wondering how to be able to get a handle on, to be able to do different things in your own practice that you never thought you would be able to do. And so, because I don't believe in just, donations and stuff like that, I like to give something back for somebody.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Fuck, he does watch your channel.
He has to, right? I'll accept donations, but that's like not my favorite. I want you to get something for it. I completely agree. That is the right attitude. And last question I want to give you, Dan, just as because, for me, I'm always trying to write the beginner's guide. What would you say for a novice beginning? Because I get a lot of those people here who are just starting. I get a lot of masters or people who do it. Where should someone start exploring these subjects? What would you, in 500 words or less, where would you start?
The cornerstone of all occult practice is meditation.
Bingo. Oh, wow. See, I love this. Yes, I agree completely. Meditation and the ontologies that birthed it. Yes, I would agree. Yeah, absolutely. That's, you can't do magic. I mean, you can. Let me correct myself. A complete doofus can pick up a book and do the magic and get a result. That's not the problem. You can just go bibbity bobbity boo and you can get, it'll still work, believe it or not, because there's something to the symbolism, but the meditation, of course, meditation is a nonsensical word. What exactly are we talking about? Go Google meditations and go find one that's going to take you there to those. One of the biggest mistakes we have is when we say that enlightenment. So there's a wise saying, enlightenment is not an altered state of consciousness. It's actually the opposite. Enlightenment is the pure state of consciousness. All of this other shit is the enlightened state of consciousness. So meditation gets you to the pureness of consciousness itself. And there's a lot of different meditations that'll do that. You've got to find the one that works best for you. For me, it was very simple. For other people, you got to do, some people need mantras and they need seed mantras and transcendental this and that. And some people need Kundalini and they need yoga. And there's different stuff for everybody, but find the one that works for you. And I agree. Very, very well said, Dan. So start with meditation. That's the cornerstone. Correct. I agree. All right.
Oh.
So go ahead, Dan. Or Fleshy or whoever.
I was going to say that sounds like we're wrapping it up.
Yeah.
I was going to start to do the slogans and such.
Oh, before you do the slogans, next week, since it's going to be the day before Christmas Eve, I'm tentatively planning on doing Thursday because we're going to have Serial on. I'm assuming that Thursday almost for sure, like 90%. Is that all right with you, Fleshy? You got plans that week or whatever?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I can do it.
So we're going to have a Serial Krabat almost 100% likely on Thursday, a week from tonight. As some of you may know, he's an accomplished guy himself. He's got a really interesting channel, and he's another one with an awesome voice. He speaks very beautiful German. He'll speak it in English for you so that we'll be able to understand it. But he's got a really cool accent and he's a really cool guy. And I wish he was here to hear me say that. I'll have to kiss his ass when he shows up instead. Dan, I appreciate you coming on, and I would like to have you back again really soon. So don't be a stranger. I'll bug you again, or you can bug me if you feel like coming on. You got something you want to talk about. The more you come on, the less I talk, because I don't feel like I got to talk to you. I can just let you talk. So if you come on again, maybe I'll talk less next time.
Thank you. And thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate that.
Oh,
absolutely.
It's a lot of fun.
we try. So so I appreciate you guys. All right, Fleshy, give us the slogans.
Yeah, so thank all you guys for being here. We appreciate each and every one of you bastards, bitches, and non-binary witches. So until next time, mind the shadows, tell
And
your
never-
friends, warn your enemies.
And never take your enemies more seriously than no wait, never take yourself more seriously than your enemies do. There we go. I remember it now. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right, cool.